matter, but
The president says
because
governors
obviously they
have a
haven't been called
choice.
out, but, like,
Bring in
in the
enough
cities
of the
where they
National
have-
Guard
called
to
out. They did a great job.
in the cities where they
dominate
are called out
last night.
well, I don't
take action.
Then
what
I
are,
will
I don't
deploy
see
the
them doing
United
anything.
States military
First of all, it's
and
not.
quickly solve the
Trump can't
problem
call them
for
out. The
them.
governor has to
Federal
call them
law
out.
I know, but I'm
doesn't
saying in the
allow
states where
president
they've
to
been
use the
called out,
military in states
why
that
aren't the
defy
National
federal
Guard
law.
stopping looters?
They are. They've done an
Troops were
exceptional
sent
job.
to southern states
Maybe
to
you're right, I
fight
just haven't
school
seen it.
desegregation
for
orders.
example, done a
But
really good
experts
job.
say in this
What are they
case
doing?
there's
Pushing
no
them backwards?
allegation states are
Yeah, they've got
refusing
huge
to
guns.
enforce
They've got huge guns
Good.
and tanks.
Well, good. They
That's
should
what you
be.
have to do in this
Of
situation.
course.
Nevada health
And it's
officials
not
reporting the
dictated.
state's
It's like
total
at this
number of
point, the country
COVID-19
needs to be
cases is
dictated
now past
for the next couple of
8,600.
weeks. Would you
State
argue with that?
Department of Health and Human Services updated their testing
I
data
think a
with
strong
a new
hand is
total of
necessary.
I'm not saying for
8,688
6
positive
months.
I don't
corona
know if
cases
a Bible,
Monday.
photo
The number
Bible
of known deaths is now up to
That should have
421.
been if St.
A new
John's
study
did not
suggests
get
that people need to
desecrated
combine
the
social
way they
distancing
did.
and good
That
hygiene
was-
to protect themselves from the
That
coronavirus.
source-
A new analysis that takes what's known about
I think you got to do
COVID-19
I think
and
you have to
adds
strike a balance
information about
between
other
if you're President
viruses
Trump,
is
I think you need to strike
suggesting
a
that
balance
there's no
between
one
comforting
perfect strategy
and
to
strong
contain
hands.
the spread. That's why
You know,
researchers
I
are
mean,
recommending
people at
not
the
only
same
wearing a
time as they
mask
want to
and
see
social
law and order, they
distancing,
also
but
want to
also
see
being vigilant
somebody
about
that
hand washing
says,
and not touching the
you know,
face.
we're
The
gonna be
analysis
okay.
published in the journal
You know,
Lancet
at the
also
same time,
says
it's a
single-layer
tough job,
masks
but
made out
the
of
president
cloth
needs to
are
do
less effective
both.
than surgical masks, while
In my opinion.
N95s, which are being
Anyway,
reserved for
we gotta
healthcare
talk
workers,
about this here.
provide the best protection. I'm Jackie Quinn.
With a check on our weather, here's News 3's Kelly Curran.
We're looking at
Eat your
mostly
lots.
to partly sunny skies as we head throughout the day today. Temperatures a little warmer, topping out around 103 today in Las Vegas with winds out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Keep listening for more updates throughout the day from News 3, your weather authority.
Partly cloudy, 88 in Las Vegas. I'm John Shapiro on the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDON, Las Vegas' only FM news style station. With a look at the roads, here's John Michaels.
From the Letterman Road Traffic Studio.
Ryan and his
This report
Friend
sponsored by
stopped by my
DuckDuckGo
podcast.
Privacy. Bridger
She's funny,
Avenue
man.
is closed east of
really
Casino Center Boulevard and
She
Las
goes-
Vegas Boulevard
Brian
for
was-
ongoing
Brian
police
was talking, and she
investigation.
goes- she
Take
goes to
Stewart
Brian, she
or
goes,
Bonneville.
Could
as
you
good
please let me
alternates to get
finish my
around.
thought?
And also, police activity to watch for on I-15 southbound at Sahara for a vehicle
Yeah, that's
reportedly
funny.
blocking the
Yeah, that's good.
HOV. Freeway cameras show no
You
heavy
weren't there.
delays. Watch for
It was in my
vehicles
apartment
off to the
last
side.
night.
Oh, yeah.
Want the same internet but
And then I
more
figured your
privacy?
wife's ass.
DuckDuckGo's got you covered.
Great.
They help millions of people like you get privacy online without any trade-offs.
Never said you were disappointed in
DuckDuckGo.
Thanksgiving.
And
Privacy
five looters
simplified.
took turns
I'm John
banging
Michaels
you.
from the KDON Traffic
That's the
Center.
funniest thing your wife said yesterday. You were disappointed
Hear
at
that sound?
Thanksgiving
After you've been
dinner.
hurt in a wreck, that's the sound of the value of your case going down. Every second you wait to get medical
See,
treatment
yeah.
and to get a
Well,
lawyer,
he didn't,
Well,
he didn't bring the candy
Effective
yams.
value of your case.
Sam?
After you've been hurt in a wreck, stop the clock.
Well,
By calling
fam,
Warner
I guess
Road.
we'll just have to
Immediately
celebrate
get working on
Thanksgiving
your
without
case,
JD
getting you
this
the
year.
medical treatment you need, and in most cases, with no out-of-pocket
I don't know what
expenses,
we're gonna do
even
with
if
all
you
this
don't have
extra
health
turkey and
insurance.
stuffing.
Call 877-150.
I don't know what that's
We don't
about.
managing attorney. Kevin Rose, licensed in Arizona, New Mexico, Oregon,
You're working
Washington.
very down
SMB
about that.
Unified System is supported by Kronos. HR, payroll, talent, and time, keeping in
cares?
one unified system
You're just gonna
designed
get
with a
them angry.
streamlined
Funny.
implementation
Don't poke the bear.
approach for small and
It's not political,
medium-sized
it's funny.
businesses across the globe.
Start
Learn
with
more
that.
at Kronos.com. Kronos,
It's an
workforce
impersonation of his
innovations
dad.
that work.
I'm Jim Snyder.
And I'm Marie Mortero. We want to thank you for making News
Well,
3 your number
we
one
were gonna
choice
have the
for
trimmings.
Every weeknight at 11, you can count on us to have the big story of the day.
news. Plus breaking news that matters to you.
Jim Snyder.
Jay's supposed to bring the pumpkin pie.
Listen to the Texas Corners Bible Church every Saturday night at 11 p.m. and Sunday night at 10 p.m. on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON.
Hi, Doug Bastian here. Join me Saturday afternoons from 2 to 4, and I'll tell you what your conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda hate media isn't.
You don't
You're
think,
welcome. That's Saturday afternoons, 2 to 4. Be there.
Las Vegans are starting to leave their homes and get back to work, and sterilized business is more important than ever. Disinfecting Solution offers professional disinfecting and sterilization services for homes and establishments. For the next 30 days, they're offering Las Vegas businesses peace of mind for 10 cents a square foot. That is to ensure the health and safety of you, your staff, customers. Disinfecting Solution uses only hospital-grade products, killing 99.9% of all germs, including COVID-19. 866-800-7768 or disinfectingsolution.com.
The opinions of the hosts on KDWN are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media.
Yeah, I was willing to put down $1,500.
That's absurd.
Right
Here we
now,
go.
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vegas news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Tape with Sharp and Shapiro.
It's very low.
What, in your headphones?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro on a Tuesday. Glad you could join us. Oh, boy, is there a lot to talk about in the world, in this country, and we're going to get to it all. It's the left, the right, everywhere in the middle. That's what we do on this show. We try to cover it all from a Las Vegas perspective, and we're so glad that you can join us. And this show's more about you than anybody else. We try to give you the latest information that we can. And, you know, last night I'm watching the news. I'm getting ready for the show this morning, as I do every night, and getting ready to go to bed. And I'm literally in my pajamas. Isn't that a wonderful thought? Wonderful image. But I'm literally in bed getting ready to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden my phone blows up, and I'm getting messages from people saying that at least one, maybe two officers were shot and killed in Las Vegas. So we're going to get to that. We're going to give you the latest on that coming up at the bottom of the hour. So much respect for this guy. He's such a great guy. Former UNLV quarterback and now Las Vegas Metro cop, Caleb Herring, will be joining us. His perspective as an African-American male, a police officer, and it's going to be an interesting conversation with Caleb coming up at the bottom of the hour. Then a story that, under normal circumstances, would probably be one of the biggest stories in the country right now. It has to do with race. It has to do with somebody getting shot dead. It's a story of a bar owner in Omaha, Nebraska, brandishing a gun, walking out of his business, defending himself. At least that's what the police say. So we're going to get to that coming up in hour number 2. A 22-year-old black male is dead. We're going to explain why coming up in hour number 2. And the deceased father has agreed to come on our show to share their story. Also, a woman that tackled the shooter. You want to talk about, I don't know if courage is the right word because it's not something I would do, but a woman tackling a man while brandishing a gun in front of protesters. She's going to be joining us coming up in hour number 2 as well. So a lot to get to with that story. It's a wild one. It's got a little bit of everything in it, and unfortunately it has tragedy in it as well. And then in hour number 3, boy, this is really getting me going. And it goes to show you why I call the President of the United States a narcissist. It was a photo op yesterday. Did you hear about this? In the middle of the day, while there were peaceful protests going on, in the middle of the day, the President decided to walk up a few blocks from the White House and have a photo op with a Bible in his hand for about 10 to 15 seconds, then leaves. And even Republicans out there, and even those who are in charge of the St. John's Church, are calling out President Trump for what it is, and it is despicable. We'll get to that hour number 3, but I want to cover the breaking news that took place a little after midnight last night. As I said, I was getting ready for bed, and my phone just lit up with people saying, you know, cops killed. And, you know, kind of like after October 1 happened, you had so much misinformation. Nobody really knew exactly what happened, except it was not good news and it was really bad. Well, it is bad. 2 separate shootings that happened in Las Vegas after midnight. Let me start with the first one that I don't necessarily have a problem with, at least the result. A man brandishing several guns, I believe, dressed in camouflage, dressed as G.I. Joe, was in front of the federal courthouse that was being guarded by police. And all courthouses, for the most part, throughout the country are being guarded by police, federal buildings. Metro police are saying that the man was brandishing several guns and reached for one of the guns, and the cop shot him and killed him. Don't know who this man was. Don't know if he was a protester. Don't know if he was with Black Lives Matter. And I'm not going to speculate on that. But I don't have a problem with what police did. And to be honest with you, if this guy was dressed like that, threatening police in camouflage and weapons, and then reached for one of his weapons, I'm glad he's dead, quite frankly, if the police are telling us the truth. And I have no reason to believe they're not telling us the truth. No problem with that shooting. Now, it's scary, and thank God there wasn't more carnage that happened there, because that's a very dangerous situation. Thank God. But I don't have a problem with that shooting. Now, there was a lot of speculation and misinformation when everything came out that it was a federal agent, that another cop was shot. Not the case. That's not what happened. But then we go to another shooting, and any shooting is serious, but this one is far more serious and troubling, and it really makes Vegas look bad, and it puts us on the national map in a way that Vegas does not want to be on a national map. From what police are saying, reports are saying, there were several police officers that were arresting a protester. And in the middle of that arrest, or the attempt of incarcerating that individual and putting handcuffs on him, again, these are just reports. I don't know if this was a protester, but allegedly a protester snuck up behind one of the male cops, shot him in the head, and now what we are learning in the latest information on that police officer is that it is not looking good.
Brian,
for
you
him.
cannot call that person a protester.
Okay,
that is an embarrassment to all protesters.
Okay, so I'm not.
You have to call, and I'm you, Reno, LVRJ, whatever. They have to call this person a looter or a rioter.
Okay,
you cannot call someone who shoots a police officer in the back of the head while they're in a fight with somebody else a protester.
Okay, so I'm just trying to give the listeners background on what took place yesterday. I'm not injecting any opinions into this. We will do that, but I'm trying to give people background on what happened. And there are reports that say he was a protester. I'm not saying he was a protester. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying what some of the reports are saying. I don't know. Here's what I do know, and here's what gets me angry. Whether that person was a protester, Black Lives Matter, or a white supremacist, what matters is that police officer probably, and I hope I'm wrong on this one, will never talk again and will never be able to speak with. I hope I'm wrong when I say that, but the reports are that he is in a very grave situation right now, which is horrible. And when you talk about a head injury and somebody shot in the head, there certainly never will be the same person they once were. And I'm praying that he's able to make sort of recovery.
Shot from behind while he was while he was engaged with somebody else. I mean, what kind of a worthless coward does something like that?
Well, yeah, that's my point. And what I'm saying is whether it was a protester or a rioter or a white supremacist or a Black Lives Matter whatever the case may be, that will come in due time. What is important is that we have a police officer that is fighting for his life right now, a family that is grieving, and thank God the good police work, they were able to capture this son of a bitch, and that person is behind bars, will hopefully never be released from jail for the rest of his life. But it's horrible on a lot of different fronts. And by the way, this is the first officer, as far as I know, that was shot, although I'm hearing reports in Atlanta where 4 officers were shot upon as well. But this was
that was in St. Louis.
I apologize, St. Louis.
There were 2 police officers that I saw on video ran over in New York, a couple more in Buffalo.
He's in stable condition.
I mean, there have been, I've probably seen 10 to 12 officers brutally attacked on video in the last 24 hours in the riots.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is this is the first case where an officer could lose his life.
The point I'm trying to make is Blue Lives Matter.
That officer that was run over, he's in stable but serious condition last I checked. Those officers that were shot at, some were hit. They're in stable condition, thank God. But this is huge news, and it's sad news, and we hope that this officer, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. When you're shot in the head, chances are you're probably not going to make it, and I hope I'm wrong on that, but it's a terrible situation. So I want to play you a clip from Sheriff Joe Lombardo. So Sheriff Joe Lombardo woke up earlier this morning, and he held a very brief press conference. This is a part of what Joe Lombardo said earlier this morning on the Strip.
This is a sad night for LVMPD family and a tragic night for our community. With these protests, which are leading to riots, one tragedy is only leading to another. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, as do I. Our investigations into both these incidents will be ongoing throughout the morning, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. What has occurred is utterly unacceptable. I hope the community sees it that way too.
I think the community does see it that way. Any reasonable person would see it that way. You know, I remember when I was a reporter, I had to cover, was this when I was a reporter? No, I was a talk show host. This was maybe 7-8 years ago, where 2 police officers were hanging out in a pizza parlor, just having pizza, on duty. 2 good cops on duty, not doing anything wrong, not bothering anybody. And these 2 white supremacist bastards, a couple, walk into the pizza parlor, ransack the officers, shoot one of the officers in the back of the head, and then the other officer had about 2 seconds to react, gets his gun out, not in time, they kill him too. And those 2 white supremacists then walk into a Walmart 100 feet away where another person dies, and then eventually police kill both of them. They draped Confederate flags over the dead police officers' bodies, and then they went into Walmart. And when I heard about this case of, somebody going right behind a coward, going right behind a cop and shooting him behind his head. The first thing I thought about was this story. I remember I spoke to the wife of one of the deceased officers a few weeks later, and there haven't been a lot of moments in my life where I got extremely emotional in interviewing somebody or covering a story. It's happened a few times in my career. What I recall, it happened in the case of the Narvaez case, where she was a dancer at the Luxor, and her boyfriend at the time murdered her, cut her up, and murdered her. When I had to cover that story, that was very difficult because I became very close with her sister. It was a very emotional story to cover and a very difficult story to cover. But I remember when I was interviewing one of those officers who'd fallen in Vegas, when I interviewed one of their wives, that was an extremely difficult thing to do. You could hear the pain in her voice. The man loved his job. He loved what he did. And I'm sure we're going to learn a lot about this Metro police officer as well. And I'm getting into debates yesterday on social media, as I always do, where people are tweeting out, all cops are bad, all cops are pigs, all cops are murderers. And again, I'm going to say this again. These are some of the dumbest people in society. If you think that every cop is a bad cop, and you think that every cop is a murderer, then you're not even smart enough to have a conversation with any reasonable person. You're that stupid. Now, I don't think that the majority of these,
and you're also stupid enough to loot and riot.
But let's be honest.
Use
though.
a man's death as the rationale as to why, even though he was the person that killed him, was charged 4 days ago. There is a direct correlation, Brian, between intelligence quotient or IQ and earning power in capitalist America.
Well, I'm not going to talk about capitalist America. Again, I'm trying very, very difficult not to make this political. And what I am doing is I'm speaking logic. I'm speaking about my life experiences, the police officers that I've talked to, that I know. And all I'm trying to say, this has nothing to do with Republican and Democrat. I'm just simply saying that there are a small minority of people out there that think in these protests, it's not a majority, small amount of people that think all cops are bad. I think if you asked every single one of these protesters throughout the country, do you think all police officers are bad cops? The majority of them would say no. I'd like to think that there are more reasonable people than unreasonable people in these protests. Are there bad cops out there? Absolutely. And the example is Minneapolis. Absolutely. But the idea that all these police officers are bad cops and all these police officers don't care about your life and don't think Black Lives Matter, not only is it not true, but it's dangerous to have that way of thinking, and you're wrong and you're stupid if you think that way. Is there racial injustices throughout the country as a whole? Are minorities treated differently than others? Sadly, I would say, yeah, you're probably right, yes. But that doesn't mean that every cop is a bad cop. We've seen, you don't hear a lot about the good stories throughout the country, and I'll name you a few of them. There have been many police officers, not just in Las Vegas, but throughout the country, that have marched with the protesters. There have been many police officers that have taken a knee in solidarity. There have been a lot of hugs and a lot of handshakes, and I know it's genuine. A lot of these police officers are very angry and upset at the injustice that took place in Minneapolis. There's no question about that. It's not fake emotion.
The crazy part about the thing in Minneapolis is that knee-to-neck restraint was actually allowed by the Minneapolis Police Department.
Not if they're handcuffed and not if they're restrained.
No, 100%.
Did you see that?
Yes.
I read something differently.
USA Today 3 days ago, that they're the only police department in the country that allows that particular method of restraint. So I would argue that the only city that should be dealing with this right now is Minneapolis.
Right.
If this is all about George Floyd, then why are these riots and this looting all over the country?
Okay, are you talking about riots and looting, or are you talking about protests?
I'm fine with the protests. I do think that
you do know why the protests throughout the country are happening, right?
I get that, Brian, but that does not explain breaking into businesses, vandalizing property, and destroying things. Your answer's not going to work because there's no justification for it.
My answer's not going to work. You don't even know what I'm going to say. Just listen for a second.
Right, what I'm saying is they're the only police department that actually allows that particular restraint. If this is all about George Floyd, well, then everything should be isolated and all the blame should be on Minneapolis. Like, for example, Carmel, Indiana, they just sued the Minneapolis Police Department for damages accrued in their city because of the actions of the police department.
Okay, so let's be
part of that is because they're the only police department that allows that knee-to-neck restraint that killed George Floyd.
Let's start there. Here's what I read about that. What I read is you are allowed to put somebody in restraints, and you're allowed to put the knee to somebody's neck. That is what I read. My understanding is once that person is already not a threat, once that person is restrained, once that person, for example, is handcuffed, you are not allowed to put your knee in somebody's neck. That's what I read. So I read something different.
And did you read the TMZ article yesterday that came out?
Yes, I did.
Where he was on fentanyl?
Yeah, I don't even want to go there.
No, just listen.
I didn't finish.
No, he had methamphetamine in his system.
We can talk about that, but I don't really care
what they're saying about the Hennepin County Medical Examiner is that he had a heart attack while he was being restrained and subdued.
There was another autopsy by the Floyd family that said the exact opposite. And by the way, hold on, Michael Baden is a guy that has been doing this for decades and decades. Michael Baden said something completely different than what you're talking about, but I don't want to go there right now because I wanted to finish my statement. This is very important. The majority of the protesters throughout the country are not ruining businesses and are not causing problems. There are bad actors out there, and yes, I hope those people go to jail. They're horrible human beings, and they're scum. It is very important that when we talk about these Black Lives Matter protests and when we talk about these protests throughout the country, we understand that the majority of these people are good people that want change. The majority of these people are not causing problems. The majority of these people do not have signs up that say F the police. The majority of these people are decent people that are fed up and tired of it. And what I wish, and I didn't want to make this political, but what I wish is that the president would address that issue just as much as some of the other issues that we're facing today. He didn't do it enough. No, he did not. No, he did not.
Brian, what
did he say?
He mentioned specifically the George Floyd situation.
Yeah, but what did he say about systemic racism?
In depth a few days ago.
What did he say about systemic racism?
Is this about George Floyd, or is this about systemic racism and oppression for 1,000 years in capitalist America, where you are not?
Why do you keep saying that?
Because in capitalist America,
why do you keep saying that?
If you work hard, as hard as you want to work, that's as successful as you can be.
It's easy for you to say as a white person. No,
it isn't.
It's easy for you to make that statement.
Actually, listen, Brian.
Well, you have no idea what African Americans go through.
It is not easy to say as a white person.
So you don't think African Americans are dealt with differently when it comes to business and everything in this country? You think they're treated the same as you, and it's just hard work for you? Is that what you're saying? Because it's wrong.
I'm saying that if you would like to be successful in America, you can be successful in America. It's
easy for you to say, listen, I am not going to say something like, okay, well, I'm not going to take your approach. You know why? Because I don't know what it's like to be black in America. I don't know what it's like to be walking down the street and be afraid of police officers.
So are you saying that every single African American is a victim?
Okay, well,
because of those circumstances.
Once again, if you just listen,
is that what you're doing?
Once again,
because that's what I think you're doing right now.
Would you like me to answer? You interrupted me.
I feel like that is a disservice to a lot of African Americans out there.
I think you're doing a service.
I'm not at all.
Why?
I am not at all.
Well, let me explain.
I'm saying we're in the greatest country in the world as far as if you want to make something of yourself in the United States, you are ready, you are willing and able to do so. And if you don't want to, you can still get assistance from the government to live your life.
If I can talk for 30 seconds without you interrupting me, because I haven't been able to finish one thought yet. What I'm trying to say is this: minorities as a whole, by law enforcement, business, if you look at the average salary of an African American to a white person, it is different. There is a reason for that. And in my personal opinion, and I think many would agree with me, it has nothing to do with hard work. It has to do with there is systemic racism in this country. And people on the right, particularly white people on the right, want to diminish what African Americans, if I could finish, want to diminish what African Americans are doing in these protests. And it's not just about George Floyd. George Floyd is a symbol now for injustice when it comes to law enforcement. This is something that minorities have had to deal with for hundreds of years. Now, as a white person, if you just want to go on the radio and say, well, it's about capitalism, just work hard and you'll get what you want, that is a ridiculous statement, and it is offensive to African Americans, because I can tell you right now, there is a reason why African Americans are not treated the same as
Can you not become whatever you want to be in the United States if you have if you're in the...
agree with what I just said?
No. I mean, can you not in the United States, if whatever you want to be in the United States, can you not pursue that dream?
I believe it is more.
You absolutely can pursue that dream.
You're asking me a question.
You are turning African Americans into victims as a collective by making statements like that, Brian.
Well, guess what?
And you know what's actually making the protests look bad? It's not Donald Trump. It's not the right. It's the looting and the rioting that is resulting of them.
Okay.
That is what's making the protests look bad, Brian.
So it's your take.
Not the protests themselves are not making them look bad.
That's totally fine. So it's your take that
I'm not going to turn African Americans into a collective victim in the United States
of course
of
you're
America.
not, because you don't know what it's like to be black. So I'm not surprised you have that
I shouldn't have to know what it's like to be black.
No, you don't.
To not turn the entire race into victims in the United States, Brian.
You are diminishing.
No, you are. You are diminishing African Americans' opportunity in the United States.
Okay, can I talk? What you're saying is so beyond ridiculous. I don't even know where to start. You are saying that you believe African Americans as a whole are treated the same as if you are white in this country. That is one of the dumbest things you've ever said on this show. It's not factually accurate, and I couldn't find one African American that I've ever talked to in my life that would agree with you. You are white. I am white. I don't know what it's like to be black. You don't know what it's like to be black. And the reason why many of these protesters are out there are not just because of George Floyd. They want to be treated as equals. Hold on a second. I'm not done yet. It is easy for you to say that, sitting in that chair, grown up as a white person, growing up in Omaha. It is easy for me to say that, but I wouldn't say it. Growing up as someone as a white person in Connecticut, the bottom line is this. It's not just about law enforcement. It's not just about the way minorities are treated by law enforcement. That is certainly a big part of this. But they are sick and tired of being racially profiled, and they are sick and tired of not being treated as equals. Now, if you want to look at me for making that statement, and you want to say, oh, you're diminishing African Americans, you're making them seem as victims, that is what these protests are about. They want to be treated as equal. And for you to sit there and diminish that and to say, oh, if you work hard in this country, you can get whatever the hell you want.
Don't get pious.
I'm not getting pious.
You are
I'm
getting
speaking
pious.
the truth.
You're getting pious, and you are turning African Americans into victims. You are absolutely
no, I'm
doing
not.
that,
I think you're acting like a white privileged kid growing up in Omaha.
A white privileged kid
If you
growing
want
up
to
in
call
Omaha,
me pious,
yeah.
that's what I
No,
think
you are being completely pious.
Well, you're acting like
I'm not acting white privilege at all.
All right, well, that's what I think you're doing.
Under
If
no
you want a name
circumstances
call, that's what you're
whatsoever.
doing. You don't know what it's like to be black.
I did not name call.
You don't know what it's like to be growing up in a black neighborhood, growing up as a minority in this country, and your statement's wrong.
Based on your behavior,
and it's wrong.
You are acting pious.
Based on my behavior.
I am not calling you a buffoon or an idiot or a moron.
Okay, well, you did that yourself yesterday on the show, so. Because you lost a bet.
Actually, you lost the bet because gaming is sports betting.
Right.
But I let you win the bet because of that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because you're right. The casinos are open. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, former UNLV football quarterback Caleb Herring will be joining us. Why are we having him on? Well, he's also a Metro police officer. He happens to be African American. So we'll ask Caleb what you just said. Hey, you could just work hard in this country. It's capitalism. Does it matter if you're an African American? We'll ask Caleb because he's actually black. We'll ask him that question. We'll see what his response is coming up next. You're listening to the Vegas Take right here. We'll be back right after this.
You looking for a positive? I've got it. Use your life insurance while you're living. MyTermLifeGuy.com. Look, with everything that we've been through, don't just think about your family. You got to think about you. Term life insurance. Get one that lets you use it while you're living. MyTermLifeGuy.com. It's that simple. MyTermLifeGuy.com. A $1 million policy for a healthy male non-smoker below $35 a month. MyTermLifeGuy.com.
Sponsored by Gold Coast Insurance Group.
The world needs more heroes, more action-oriented do-gooders, more here's how I can help right-hand side kids. The world of sarcoma is no different. And if you're thinking, what is sarcoma? We're glad you're listening. Sarcoma is a rare cancer of the body's soft tissue and bone, and this cancer affects tens of thousands of Americans yearly. The Sarcoma Foundation of America partners with like-minded heroes to advocate for sarcoma patients through funded research and widespread awareness efforts. Learn how you can join forces at curesarcoma.org.
Hey, it's Lee Goldberg of the GCI Guys at Realty One Group. You know anyone that's looking to buy a home, sell a home? Let's move from California. If so, give them my number, 702-902-3029. All listeners of the Vegas Take get $1,000 in your hand back at closing. Hometown heroes, veteran, military, police, teacher, nurse, I'm giving you $2,000 back. That also goes for hospitality and casino employees. Free use of a moving truck for a day, 6 free months of home security. Call me, 702-902-3029. The GCI Guys.
Special report protests across America. Joe Biden says President Trump's narcissism has become more important than the nation he leads.
This is the United States of America. There's never been anything we've been unable to do when we set our mind to do it.
Look at Chris Wynn on YouTube as the Vegas Take, writing 99% of police officers are good cops.
That's who we are at our best.
Marianne Edward, the bishop
Chris
of
Wynn,
the church that Trump visited last night, called his use of force against peaceful protesters wrong.
This was a charade that in some ways was meant to bolster a message that does nothing to calm to calm the soul and to reassure the nation that we can recover from this moment, which is what we need from a president.
Trump today visited the second church in as many days. The Dow up 143. I'm Mike Moss.
Do you follow this
It's
Twitter,
time to check
Vital
the roads.
Vegas?
From the Letterman Road
Are they credible at all?
Studio.
Or are saying the strip's not going to open?
America's schools are closing, which can be especially tough on students who struggle with poverty, hunger, and trauma. But communities in schools can help. Our organization puts caring adults inside schools to help vulnerable students stay in school. Now, in the face of crisis, we're working beyond school walls, delivering meals to students, helping them access remote learning, doing whatever it takes to help them succeed. To learn more, visit communitiesinschool.org.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Letterman Road Traffic Studio.
Luxury retailers.
This report sponsored by DuckDuckGo Privacy. An accident reported on Russell Road at Maryland Parkway, causing local slowing. Avoid delays, take an alternate. You could use Tropicana. That's a good one. Also an accident reported on Jones Boulevard at the 215 Beltway. There you could use Bradley or 10A away instead. And one more. It's a crash on Spring Mountain Road westbound at I-15. Good alternates, Desert Inn or Sahara. Fed up with companies selling your data? DuckDuckGo is on it with one download. You can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers all for free. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified. John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
The world needs more heroes, more action-oriented do-gooders, more here's how I can help right-hand sidekicks. The world of sarcoma is no different. And if you're thinking, what is sarcoma? We're glad you're listening. Sarcoma is a rare cancer of the body's soft tissue and bone, and this cancer affects tens of thousands of Americans yearly. The Sarcoma Foundation of America partners with like-minded heroes to advocate for sarcoma patients through funded research and widespread awareness efforts. Learn how you can join forces at curesarcoma.org.
Mark Levin, weekdays 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 a.m. KDON.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. As I mentioned earlier, tragedy taking place in the early morning hours today, where we have one Metro police officer who is in very grave danger now, shot in the head. He's just trying to hold on for his life. Really sad situation. Another shooting in front of the courthouse, the federal courthouse, where one person is dead. And, is this going to get better, or is this something that we should expect, over the next weeks and months if these protests continue? Well, I want to get the perspective of someone who I respect very much, not only because he was a great UNLV quarterback and he got UNLV to a bowl game and he's a friend of the show, but he also happens to be a Metro cop, and he's a great police officer and a really smart guy. We wanted to get his perspective on what is a very sad day for police officers, not just in Las Vegas, but throughout the country. That would be Caleb Herring. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing as best as can be expected right now. Thanks for having me on right now.
Sure, I appreciate it, Caleb. All right, let me start with this because this is the tragic news. What is your reaction? Did you know this officer that was shot? Do you know who it is? And I know there's probably only so much you can say about it, but police have already put out a statement saying that this officer was shot from behind, fighting for his life. I mean, what do you make of this horrific story?
It's tragic. It's you never want to wake up as an officer to the feeling of having to shroud your badge the next day, the flags, half-staff, because of one of your brothers fighting for their life or possibly losing their life in the line of duty. It's a sad reality of the profession, but it's one that you never hope you have to face. And personally, I didn't know the officer that is the victim right now and is fighting for his life, but I understand that the community, the brotherhood of law enforcement, is in mourning and frustrated and angry at what is really a senseless act of violence committed against a law enforcement agent, and that's unacceptable in any circumstance. And that's the feeling that you wake up with in the morning when you realize this news and you see your brothers in blue posting their thoughts and condolences and prayers and hopes for their brother who's fallen in line of duty.
Sure. I mean, do you think, this might be a tough question for you to answer, Caleb, as a Metro cop, but do you think that the National Guard should be deployed at this point?
I think it's a strong consideration. I would hope that it didn't have to get to that. Because there's all kinds of messaging that sends, and you don't want to be at war with yourself in a sense, and that's never the goal. That should never be the first option. You understand the civil unrest, and you hope that local law enforcement is able to handle, and differentiate between those that are peacefully trying to exercise their rights and those that are intentionally trying to instigate violence and incite violence with their own agendas. So you hope that local law enforcement can make that differentiation, but and sometimes you have to use the resources that are available to you, and from a law enforcement perspective, you don't want to be reactive in situations like this, because that unfortunately leads to more situations like this if left unchecked. If that's the direction that it's going, I have no problem with the National Guard or
I hear you.
being used to maintain control and order.
So, Caleb, I try to say this on the show every day because I think it's important. I don't know what it's like to be an African-American male. At the same time, I understand why the majority of the protesters are out there, at least the ones that are not rioting and are not causing trouble. It's not just about George Floyd, right? It's not just about what happened in Minneapolis. It's something that has been going on for hundreds of years. And you could correct me if you think I'm wrong here. It is the fact, in my personal opinion, that it's not just police, some bad actors, some bad police officers, but it's racial injustices that have been going on in this country for hundreds of years. And, my co-host JD, he's entitled to his opinions, but he thinks, you can, if you just work hard, you can get what you want no matter what the color of your skin is. And while that might be true to an extent, I think it does diminish why many of these protesters are out here, and that is to make it in this country. I think it is more difficult, no matter how hard you work. I think it's more difficult as a minority in this country. I think that needs to change as well. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think that police brutality in particular, I don't think, and like you said, it's not a singular incident of, George Floyd or Trayvon Martin or, any other situation of police brutality or criminal justice that where the Black or African American community was failed by the system. It's not just one singular event, I think. And I don't even think I would go as far to say that these incidents are as simple as, white guys hate black guys or something like that, or people inherently hate black people and that's why these incidents happen. I think there's evidence to suggest that racial divides that maybe were the construct of the government of the time, in the time of slavery, for economic reasons. The racism was a social construct then, and the remnants of such deep-seated racial injustices at that time have permeated throughout American history and are, in fact, at the root of a lot of American institutions and the way that we see government and see the role of law enforcement in the community. There is undeniable racial implications there, and we see the remnants of it in times like this. So the outrage over it is definitely not over a singular event and it's not aimed at a singular individual and his racist act. And that would be oversimplifying the problem. I think the problem is a systemic emergency, I would say, in the American history that we've ignored for too long. And I think turning a blind eye to it and those facts doesn't help to find solutions. I've mentioned before, convicting an officer doesn't change the system. I mean, the system is set up so that it can withstand and have, another piece to replace it. Whether that piece is a good apple or a bad apple is completely irrelevant to the fact that the system continues to work. And for too long in this country's history, I think African Americans and minority groups are the targets of such systems and were capitalized on by those systems, whether it's slavery or the prison industrial complex throughout history. That there's been systems that were in place to oppress and keep minorities down. And I think that has to be realized and addressed in a holistic way and not just through rioting and acting this way or through a simple conviction of an officer who made a mistake.
Oh, Caleb, so there was in Minneapolis when Officer Derek Chauvin put George Floyd in the knee-to-neck restraint. That is actually allowed in the Minneapolis Police Department, and it's the only police department, I believe, that I've seen in the country that's allowed. Can you explain why the knee-to-neck restraint is so frowned upon and discredited by police forces?
Well, there's several other techniques that are frowned upon that all result in the same kind of reasoning, I guess. It's positional asphyxiation. I think that it's known, at least as far as I'm concerned, the way I was trained, that certain restraint techniques may be necessary at a time to gain control over a suspect.
Exactly. They had control.
You are trained. You are trained to have the awareness that position that you're putting this person in, hands behind the back, even on their stomach, is one that makes it difficult to breathe. Without having a knee on your neck, if you've ever been in a position where you're face down with your arms behind your back, it already becomes difficult to breathe. Add additional body weight on top of that, whether on the neck or just on the back, it can make it difficult to breathe. I mean, in the sports world, even, the dog pile was kind of a thing where people would celebrate by piling on people. And that's actually even a dangerous situation there. So we know that certain things we do as officers put people in compromising positions as far as their health is concerned. It is the duty of the officers, and I don't understand why Minneapolis, I can't speak for their systems and their policies, but I can't understand why this particular position was something that was not departmentally frowned upon, to the point where they actually had this as a part of their policy. I don't understand that, and I won't speak to defend that. I do know that it is knowledge, especially in the police department or the police academy that I attended, that positional asphyxiation is a thing that happens, and we have to be aware of that when, in fact, we go to use force, whether it's necessary force or excessive force. We have to be aware that at some point you have to pull back and understand that somebody's position and your impediment of their ability to breathe is important, and that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to restrict somebody's airways and make it difficult for them to breathe and survive.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole situation with the Minneapolis Police Department. You got Philando Castile that happened in 2016. The statistics are showing that African Americans are killed by police officers there at a 13 times higher clip than Caucasians. You had the situation with Amy Klobuchar, who was she ran for president. She was the former prosecutor, and she declined actually giving Officer Chauvin charges because this isn't the first time he's been. Do you think that, considering the fact that they do allow that knee to neck restraint and that this outrage is at least it started with George Floyd, do you think that maybe the riots and what's taking place across the country should be isolated to Minneapolis? Or, I mean, do you agree with it being a nationwide thing at this point? And also, so that's the first question. The second question is, Carmel, Indiana actually just sued the Minneapolis Police Department for their behavior, for the actions, the damage that they sustained in their city from their actions. Do you think that other police departments might do this, or that other cities might do the same thing in the near future?
I think for the first question, I don't think that we touched on this earlier. I don't think the riots and the response that we're seeing are specifically in response to just a George Floyd or that department. I don't think it can be regionalized or isolated to just that singular incident. So containing, I guess, the riots and to that community and that police department, I think don't address it as a national issue that it is, because it's not just there that it happens. This was obviously egregious, and there's been other cases throughout history where it's happened. And I think pointing to something that people rarely talk about is that there was 110 cities after the assassination of Martin Luther King that went to riot for 6 days. And it wasn't until that 6th day that the 1968 Civil Rights Act was passed. And so while I don't advocate for rioting and looting of any kind of senseless violence, I do understand that when the country sees it as an issue, the country can make change. And that 1968 Civil Rights Act gave us a lot in terms of equality. Didn't quite close the gap entirely, but it was in large part, President Johnson signed that act into law because of the riots nationally in response to Martin Luther King. So I think the national stage is the issue deserves, to answer the first question. The second question, I would say, it's really tough to say, and forgive me if you could refresh me on the second question.
The second question was Carmel, Indiana. The entire city just sued the Minneapolis Police Department because of damages incurred to their city because of their actions. And talking about Derek Chauvin, and obviously not just Derek Chauvin, but Philando Castile and Amy Klobuchar, and just a lot of the systemic racism that clearly does exist within that police department. Do you think other cities across the country will do the same thing? Was the question.
Well, okay, so yeah, I don't think that necessarily a nationwide thing where other cities and departments start to do that, but I understand that there comes a certain sense of accountability with that kind of action, because if a police department knows or should have known that there's a pattern of behavior that is unbecoming and they have continually failed to act upon it, like you said with the Philando Castile incident and with this incident, the officer who unfortunately ended George Floyd's life, had a history of potentially, I don't want to say racially charged motives, but potentially bad policing habits. And if it was failed in the past to be addressed by the department, then yes, these events can be linked as, held responsible by the department. So
Sure.
It makes sense, and I appreciate that sense of accountability. But I don't think this will be a nationwide thing, and I think you would create an even broader chasm between the police that police the community. I think that's one of the biggest issues is if you continue to drive a wedge between the police and the communities they serve, then this us versus them narrative, this anti-police, anti-Black Lives Matter, whatever you want to say, the pitting of citizens, and at the end of the day, without a badge, black or white, will continue if you just broadly stroke things like that across. Now,
Sure.
In this case, this department, you can definitely trace that inaction by the department in the past could have, or action by the department in the past could have prevented this incident happening, and thus prevented all the damage that that city is seeing right now from happening. So
Sure.
they have that argument. I appreciate them for taking that step of accountability.
No question. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Caleb Herring, not only a former winning UNLV quarterback, also a winner as a Metro cop, a really good police officer, and we wanted to get his perspective on that. So, Caleb, I want to ask you about this. Some of the African Americans that I speak to on a regular basis, they say they don't want to hear Donald Trump talk about race relations in this country at all. Just stay out of it. And then I hear other African Americans that are saying, we need more leadership. We need to heal. We need a leader. We need someone to show more leadership. I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened yesterday, and that is the fact that the President of the United States and many on his staff decided to walk a few blocks to a church for a photo op. That's exactly what it is. That's factually accurate because he didn't walk into the church. He didn't open up a Bible. He had a Bible in his hand as a prop. He took pictures for 10 or 15 seconds, and then he left. Why am I bringing this up? Well, because there were peaceful protests yesterday in Washington during the day, and they were pushed out violently by police officers and police law enforcement. I think it's pretty fair to say that that was at the White House directive to clear a few blocks so the president could have his photo opportunity. What do you make of that? What do you make of where the president's at right now when it comes to race relations in this country? And what are some of your friends, African-American minority friends, saying about what the president should or shouldn't do?
Well, I don't want to speak for anybody else other than myself when I say this, and I think there may have been a population of African Americans and people who look like me who share my sentiment, but I would say that from the announcement of his candidacy, President Trump has not had the most blemish-free history when it comes to race relations. I think that goes back to his time in New York with the whole Central Park 5 incident. So there was a distrust within myself as far as looking at him as far as his track record showed of what he really brought to the race relations issues. And that doesn't mean that he would necessarily have been a bad president or anything like that. That doesn't mean I disagree with all of his policies and other platforms. But when it comes to race relations, I think he speaks from a place of no credibility as far as I'm concerned. This is before the presidency and all that. So this incident is the most recent one when, like you said, the staged, I guess, photo opportunity, which means little to me. I don't think the voice of leadership that I'm looking for is from Donald Trump, President Trump anyway, when it comes to race relations, because he's simply just out of touch. I think I need someone, I would prefer someone with a more credible history when it comes to the matter. But like I said, I don't speak for the black population by any means. I will say this, that the continued, I guess, narrative that Donald Trump or any president or anyone is going to be the leader of the movement is I think, negative and is damaging. I think waiting for someone else to lead you out of your own situation will always end in more waiting. I think in America especially, we've had civil rights leaders and activists who have fought, bled, protested, and died for civil rights, and yet here we are, the Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's and go on and throughout history, and those people that have stood for social and economic justice. But I think the inherent problem is that these problems are more individual than we like to say. And I think at this point in American history, at least, we do have a little bit more individual power
Sure.
to at least make a decision within ourselves to do better regardless
Yep.
of race and regardless of
well said.
religious background, whatever. We should
Yep.
be more self-aware of our own mindset and our suffering. And
Sure.
I think that freedom should be sought out before we seek out the leadership of some outside party or some president
Yeah.
or any other person for that matter.
Agree. Very well said. All right, I want to ask you this question because I think it's very, very important. Obviously, you're extremely well spoken. You're a really intelligent guy, and you've done very well for yourself. You have a nice family. You have a good job, and you're very good at what you do. You have your college degree. You're a successful athlete. So for somebody that looks like me, that would look at you and say, well, look at Caleb. He's an African American. He made it. Look at how well he is doing. If he can do it, any African American can do it. If somebody says something like that to you that looks like me, what would you say to them as far as being a minority, as an African American growing up your whole life? What would you say to them to educate them a little bit on how it's not the same for an African American as it is for somebody that is white growing up in this country?
Oh, it's tough. It's tough to respond to that because I do like to consider myself a success, but I do also recognize that I deal with a certain psychological trauma just for being born the way I was born. And I think even in my own journey, I have been categorized racially. And I think if I use my own life as an example, I've had run-ins with the police in Southern California where I was racially profiled, handcuffed, sat on a curb, just because I fit the description, and the description was a black male. I have been in the field of athletics. I have been racially profiled and typecasted as an athlete and quote unquote athlete. And I've been told that as a black quarterback, it's going to be harder for you to make it in a white man's profession. And that was the profession of playing quarterback. So there still has been hurdles that I have had to overcome. And there's battles that I've had to suffer with silence in order to make it to where I have become. Even today, I'm forced to make a decision every morning and to battle with two very real realities of my life, which is I mourn with the community that I was born into, being a black man, as well as this morning I mourn with the community that I was sworn into, which is the law enforcement community. And I have to face that battle every day when I put the badge on, and being called an Uncle Tom by one side and being called disloyal to the badge on another. And that's the society that we've created in America. So being black in America is a very unusual experience, even among those that are considered, I guess, acceptable examples of making it in America. And I would say you can look through history and the communities of black Americans that have made it in America and been examples of that. You can make it. The Madam C.J. Walkers and the original elite and the original black elite in the early 1900s and the Black Wall Street and Tulsa. These communities were still demonized and torn down. I think people now would look back historically at Martin Luther King and say that he was a successful person. People can look back at the Black Islam movement, whether they agree with the religion or not, and say that black community was successful and generated a lot of economic growth for the black community, but it is now non-existent. Martin Luther King was demonized during his time, and people fail to remember that. But making it in America as a black man is still a very different experience from being able to achieve in America as a white American. And the avenues that we take are riddled with hurdles and obstacles that maybe by no fault of the people that we currently reside with and the current countrymen that, we share this country with, but the systems of a dark history that has been forgotten,
right,
that are still in place and still play a factor in making it in America. So I would just say to keep in mind the totality of the circumstances
exactly
that we are all a part of.
Sure, that's my point.
That black Americans are not the only people that are that have been manipulated by the media or by slavery. Black Americans are not the only persons affected by these systems. White America has also been manipulated into believing that somehow the black man in America is the victim,
right,
and that they're less than, and that me making it as an American is somehow a testimony of courage, when in all reality it should just be business as usual. That
right, you're in America, right. Right.
No question. I want to ask you this because, and this will be my last question for you, Caleb, and I so appreciate you coming on and talking with us. In our next segment, we're going to be talking about a case where someone who owns a business shot a 22-year-old and killed a 22-year-old, not charged with murder. My understanding of the law is that you're in a business and you don't feel like your life is being threatened, but you feel like your property is being threatened. You are not allowed to kill somebody because it's not self-defense. For example, if 5 or 10 people or one person, doesn't matter, walk into your store and just start stealing stuff, if nobody has a weapon and you don't feel your life isn't threatened, you can't just blast those people and shoot them. Now, if somebody walks in with a gun or a knife, or they're torching your place on fire while you're inside, then I think that's different. That's self-defense. Can you give us the law on that? Because that's my understanding of what the law is. If your life isn't in jeopardy, you can't kill somebody because you feel like some of your property is in jeopardy. Is that true?
Well, so much of the law is circumstantial when it comes to the defense of property. I think there does have to be the imminent threat of, or the feeling of the threat of your life being on the line. But it's up to interpretation, I think, by the prosecutors and the attorneys that take on these cases to determine those things and iron those things out. Now, I haven't, the case you guys are talking about, I haven't watched it or seen it. I don't know that state's or that locality's statutes on how they approach it. So I wouldn't be able to specifically say, but I do know that there is a precedent for more than just robbery or more than just theft of property from a business. And I don't want to speak definitively on it because I don't, for instance, know off the top of my head. These statutes are very complex, and there's a lot of different justifications for actions when it comes to defense of property and the defense of one's own life. So I don't want to speak definitively. I will, however, say that there are instances of protection of property where we have case law, and we've seen that in the event and the event that you are protecting your property in terms of a business from theft, people have been able to provide defense for and justification for the murder of individuals, and it happened in Southern California during the LA riots, and it was a very popular scene in Southern California when the store owner essentially shot and killed a young black female as she's returning the items that she was suspected of stealing, and she's shot in the back of the head while trying to leave. And that
every case is different. Yeah, no, I totally.
It's very different. There's very different cases, so you don't want to speak definitively. The facts and circumstances of each case
Understood. Yep.
Determine how it's approached by law and
understood.
legal system.
Caleb, I got. We're up against a hard break, my man, but I got to tell you, I so much appreciate you coming on. I wish cops out there were just like you. I mean, no question, you're the type of police officer I want to call. When I have an issue or when I'm in trouble. You're so good at what you do. Thank you so much for coming on our show, Caleb, and speaking about these very important issues. We really do appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot, Caleb.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on and giving me a platform to speak on it.
Thank you, Caleb. He really is the best. That is Caleb Herring, former UNLV quarterback, and now currently a Metro cop. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, just about that very subject, a bar owner in Omaha shooting a 22-year-old that was looting his property. Is it legal? Is it not legal? We're going to discuss that, and we have some guests that were witnesses that were there and saw it all. Take a break. Be back after this. It's the Vegas Take.
Travis Scribner, managing partner of Westpac Wealth Partners, interviews some of the most successful business owners for insight into what makes both them and their business run. Tune in every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDON, or podcasts on iTunes.
V is for victory, except on Saturdays when V is for veterans. That's Veterans Talk, The Forgotten Promise. Join us every Saturday from noon to 1.
Veterans Talk every Saturday at noon on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN.
Millions retire online so they can do what they want offline. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Hi, it's Alan Masters. Join me and my brother David for Advice Line, 10 to midnight, Monday through Friday on 720 KDON and 101.5 FM. That's Advice Line, America's live radio counseling program. If you've got problems, we've got answers. Monday through Friday, 10 to midnight.
Your home for Sean Hannity. KDWN Las Vegas, KKLZ HD2 Las Vegas, a Beasley Media Group station.
Special report protests across America. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is sharply criticizing President Trump's action before visiting a church last night near the White House.
Using tear gas and flash grenades in order to stage a photo op in one of the most historic churches in the country, or at least in Washington, D.C. We can be forgiven for believing the president is more interested in power than in principle, more interested in serving the passions of his base than the needs of the people in his care.
Dozens of cities erupted in violence and destruction in a seventh straight night of unrest, with several police officers shot or run over. The death toll nationwide has risen to at least 9. 5,600 arrests have taken place in the week since George Floyd's death in Minneapolis touched off protest nationwide. I'm Mike Moss. The protest in the wake of the Floyd murder is drawing renewed interest in a bill working its way quietly through the California legislature. More from correspondent Jim Root.
It is passing in committee so far. It passed the Assembly Judiciary Committee, and it's headed for appropriations. Assembly Bill 3121 would establish a task force aimed at studying and developing reparations proposals for eligible African Americans. The bill's author, Assemblymember Dr. Shirley Weber, says reparations have been given to Japanese Americans for internment camps, Native Americans, and more, but never, in spite of several efforts over several years, the descendants of slaves.
6 Atlanta police officers have been charged after dramatic footage showed authorities pulling 2 young people from a car during protests over the death of George Floyd. The Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard has announced the charges at a news conference today. On Wall Street, S&P up 9 points, the Dow up 157. I'm Mike Moss.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Lerner and Rowe Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by DuckDuckGo Privacy. An accident reported on Spring Mountain Road westbound at I-15. That is causing slowing at the scene. Take an alternate like Desert Inn or Sahara instead. Also a crash on Rainbow south of the 95. And in northwest Las Vegas, the accident Jones at the 215 Northern Beltway still a factor. Use an alternate like Bradley or Tenaya Way to get around the slow and go that way. Now reports of a crash on the 95 southbound at Valley View Boulevard. Fed up with companies selling your data? DuckDuckGo is on it with one download. You can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers, all for free. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified. John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
It's open enrollment season, and Medishare is the Christian healthcare sharing ministry that saves most families about $500 a month. Google Medishare and see if it's a fit for you. Medishare, healthcare you can believe in.
Parents, stop making excuses for your children and do something to help them for the rest of their lives. Sign up at Infinity the Math Institute for the best math tutoring in the country, the best online math tutoring in the world. We help struggling students excel and help successful students get to the next level. We are also here for parents, offering free seminars explaining what your students are learning, why it seems different from what you learned, and how you can help your child do better. We also offer super affordable SAT prep classes on Fridays before our super popular Friday Fun Nights, where students and parents meet like-minded and driven families in a fun and constructive atmosphere. Coming to Infinity will be the best decision you've ever made for your child. Call 702-768-1777 or visit themathinstitute.com and tell them the Vegas Take sent you for a free assessment. That's 702-768-1777. Because at Infinity, you don't get more math problems, you get solutions.
Hi, it's David Masters. Join me and my brother Alan for Advice Midnight Monday through Friday right here on 720 KDON and on 101.5 FM. That's Advice Line, America's live radio counseling program. If you've got problems, we've got your answers. Monday through Friday, 10 to midnight.
Join Coach Harvey Hyde and Chuck Hayes Saturday evenings from 9 to 10 p.m. for Trojan Football Report, presented by South Point Hotel and Casino, here on 101.5 FM and 720 AM KDWN, where Las Vegas comes to talk.
The opinions of the hosts on KDWN are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. You know, we just had Metro Police Officer, who happens to be an African-American, Caleb Herring, talk about what are the laws. If you own a property, can you shoot somebody if they're destroying your property? No. If you feel like your life is in danger, you can. But this story is coming out of Omaha, and we've talked about it a little bit this week on the show. It's a story of a man who owns a bar. His place was, some windows were broken. He had about $10,000 or so worth of damage. His father comes out. He pushes one of the protesters. Protester pushes him back. And then the son walks out with a gun, brandishing a weapon. And now we have a 22-year-old that is dead. So what happened? Why is this man not charged with murder? Well, if you're unfamiliar with the story, I want to play this real quickly. This is Channel 7 Omaha with the latest on the story. Have a listen to this.
Videos indicate the father of bar owner Jake Gardner pushed a protester. Then someone knocked the 68-year-old man back about 10 feet.
I was hoping and praying to God that no one would pull a gun out and do something, and it happened.
Klein says he can't make decisions on emotion, only evidence, and he says the videos tell the story.
Mr. Garner, as we know now, I said, I did what I did to defend myself. And we find that we can't disprove that from the evidence that we have.
Klein breaks down the events with the videos. After that push, Klein says Jake Gardner showed his weapon. That's what got the attention of 19-year-old Elena Melendez.
As soon as I hear, there's a gun, I run over.
In the video, you can see Melendez grab Gardner from behind and tackle him. She says she was trying to keep Gardner, in the gray T-shirt, from firing that weapon.
So in just a few moments, we're going to be speaking with the father of James Scurlock, who was shot and killed tragically in this shooting in just a few minutes. But that woman you just heard in that report, Elena Melendez, who tackled the shooter, joins us right now on the show. Elena, thank you so much for being here. How are you? Elena, are you there? I think we might have just lost Elena. Hopefully we can get her back on the line. But again, kind of tracing back to this story and tracing back to what we are covering here on the show. We have this bar owner that was arrested. He was in jail for, I believe, a little over 24 hours. And then we have police letting him go. And as you just heard of the sound bites in that press conference, that they let him go and he hasn't been charged with a crime. I believe we have Elena Melendez back on the line. Elena, can you hear me okay? Are you there? Do we still not have Elena? I don't know. I think we're having some technical difficulties with our phone lines. But the issue is very simple. The issue is this. Can you leave your business, walk outside with a gun, and, protect yourself if somebody tackles you? Now, I don't have a problem with defending yourself if somebody physically attacks you. But
which is what happened.
But the question, but it's what happened that led to that I have a problem with, and I'll explain. What I have an issue with is father shouldn't have been out there making physical contact with anybody, regardless of if his business is being threatened or damaged. You cannot take it in your own hands to physically assault somebody. That's breaking the law. Even though those people were breaking the law by damaging your property, that is what law enforcement is there to do. That's number one. Number two, he's 70 years old. He shouldn't have been out there to begin with. And number three, and we got to get to our guest, but number three, I don't think that is an excuse for somebody to brandish a gun and go out there. You're asking for trouble. But joining us right now on the line is Elena Melendez for the third time. We'll see if she's on the line with us. Elena, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Hey, what's up, Elena?
So explain to me this, the situations that led up to you tackling this man with a gun. What do you remember? What do you recall? And just start from square one, if you can.
Well, initially, so I'll start, we parked at 19th Old Market downtown. And we started walking down. The police were obviously lined up, and I was with my friend who was a photographer, so the main reason
Elena, can you do me a favor? I hate to cut you off, Elena. Can you do me a favor? Can you speak into your phone? Because it's very low, and we're having a really hard time hearing you, if that's okay. It's very low for whatever reason. I don't know if that's our end or your end. But if you can, speak as loudly as you can, and go ahead. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. All right. Well, all right. We're going to have to move on from that, I guess. But Elena, if you're listening to us, feel free to call back. We want to hear your story. We want to hear what I think is a brave act, quite frankly. But we will get to that coming up here in just a few minutes. Do we have
this lady with murder too, and she pled down to manslaughter.
Right.
Her permit and everything was legal.
Hmm.
The Nebraska's a very when it comes to certain type of crimes.
Can I ask you this, sir? We know that there is systemic racism throughout the country, but are you saying, and I don't doubt what, sir, are you saying that in that area in Omaha, Nebraska, it's multiplied, it's worse?
Well, what I'm saying is Don Klein said it himself yesterday to the press. You know, the charges, but Don Klein admitted of all these infractions that he had that is against Nebraska state law.
Right, right. No, I understand.
I know for a fact, let it have been me and my 67-year-old father that got pushed, and I accidentally shot anybody, white, black, or Mexican, I would have been in jail if I had a chance to say anything.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, sir, and I don't live in Omaha, but this is a very suspicious story, to say the least. So let me hear it from you. What have you enforcement? What have you heard from witnesses? Can you explain to us what exactly you believe happened and why your son was killed? Can you explain to us?
There are so many stories. The young lady got on the news talking about she was there. She's the original person that went out and tried to, I guess it might have been her boss. She grabbed him from behind trying to, talk him down, and he shot twice. And as she was running away is when my son tried to disarm him, and he shot him down. Do I wish my son would have been one of them times where he just looked at it and said, it's not my business, not my problem? Yes, I do, to be honest about it.
Do you?
Wouldn't be having, you'll be having it with somebody else.
Right. Do you think your son was just trying to save lives and acting as a hero? From your son's perspective, you know your son better than anybody. Why do you think your son did that?
I can't say because I wasn't there, but I have taught my kids that if it's wrong, stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I will say is my son did get caught up with the little trend of doing some things he shouldn't have been doing. You know what I'm saying? Like all kids, they have mistakes.
Right.
So I can't say what he was thinking at that moment. I'm pretty gun. He heard it fired twice. My reaction probably would have been the same thing. Let's get the gun out of his hand.
And you believe that trying to do? His son was trying to your son was trying to defuse the situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that.
I believe my son, because there's other videos where you see my son telling the individual that shot him in his head that it's not worth it. Put the gun away.
Right, I heard that in the video. Right, exactly. Right. Sir, and if you're just joining us, we're speaking with James Skurlock, Sr. Lost his son, 22 years old, in a situation that took place with an Omaha bar owner whose place was being damaged. His bar, brandishing a gun, and James Skurlock jumped on his back, and Skurlock shot. The bar owner, a couple shots, and Skurlock shot and killed. We're speaking to his father right now. So my understanding of the law, and maybe I don't know if you've spoken to your attorney, maybe you can help us with this. My understanding is you cannot shoot somebody unless you feel like your life is in jeopardy. Do you buy the fact that this bar owner felt like his life was in jeopardy?
No, I don't, because hours before this incident, the same bar owner posted on Facebook something about militant style. I can't really say about that because I don't go to bars like that. I've heard the rumors, and to me, that's what it is until there's confirmation. It's a rumor. So honestly, as far as it is and racist and all this stuff the women are saying about him, I can't say.
James Skurlock Sr. on the line, as you know, the father to James Skurlock. Can you just describe to him and to our listeners what you saw from the beginning and why jump on this bar owner?
I saw Jake wave a gun, and I don't know about anyone else, but I was taught that you're waving a gun at weapons. So I saw it. I saw the tension rising, and I saw a moment to grab him, so I did. I didn't think about it. I just did it. Gun. I knew somebody was in danger, and I was behind him, so I grabbed him, and I took him down.
Why do you think he walked out there with a gun? Why?
Because he wanted to. Because he thought he had that right, because he thinks that because he's a white American, show a gun like that and knows that's not a privilege for him. He doesn't know that he can go outside and just brandish that and realize that that's not a white, if that's not white privilege to you,
right,
then you can't sit there and say as a decent human being that, hey, this is something that normal people of color can't do every day because they're getting killed. And then to kill somebody of a person of color with that gun that you're brandishing,
right,
after saying you want to do a 48-hour military-style fire watch.
Let me ask, as I have James Skurlock Sr. on the line, is there anything you want to say to Elena? Because, look, quite frankly, I think your son and Elena were trying to do the right thing. I truly believe that. They were trying to diffuse the situation. Is there anything, Mr. Skurlock, that you would like to say to Elena right now that you are both on the line?
Yes, I appreciate you a whole lot, sweetie. And I understand that you also told the police that same thing. And I appreciate that also. We're going to get justice. He's going to get what he deserves. Trust me.
So let me ask you this. When you say you believe he's going to get justice, do you think he could be charged down the road? Or
This is a very long process. I mean, very long. There was no doubt in my mind that Mr. Klein was not going to press charges. He did exactly what I expected him to do. I understand the state in which I'm in. So I believe this is going to be a long process where eventually the grand jury will indict. He will be charged with some type of murder, regardless if it's not second-degree murder, to have him pleading out, you know.
Mr. Skurlock, if you had a chance to speak to the man who killed your son, what would you say to him?
I'll say God bless.
Really?
Yes.
The man who killed...
It teaches us peace, and it teaches us forgiveness. I forgive him. I'm not mad at him.
Wow, that's very powerful.
He couldn't use self-control for his so-called self-defense.
Right. Well, that's very powerful, and you're a better man than I, and you're a very forgiving man. Elena, I want to ask you this: can you explain to Mr. Skurlock and to everybody that's listening, after you tackle him and he shoots 2 shots in the air as warning shots, what did you see next? You kind of ran away. Did you actually see anything after that?
Yeah, so it's in the video. You can tell that I run out of frame, sort of. But there was a point where I tried to run back, but I was held back. So unfortunately, like, as soon as I saw James laying on the ground, I wanted to run back and help him. So I was there with a friend at the time, and he unfortunately has gone through situations like this before growing up. He, isn't somebody that's new to these situations. And for me, this is the first time I've ever been around anything. So it's like in the video, those first 2 warning shots go off, I don't even react. I don't do anything because I thought that they were flashbangs from the police. I thought they saw people tussling in the road and they were going to try to defuse that situation. But the police didn't come running until after I was grabbed and being pulled away screaming that James was shot.
Elena, prior to any confrontation with James or with Jake in general, was he shouting any racial slurs? There was a lot of conversation on the internet that he was shouting racial slurs to the protesters.
So the friend that I was actually with has personally met with that father before. So he has actually talked to the Highboner's father and said that he was calling him like a beaner because he's Hispanic. And he said that to his face. And I didn't, like, as soon as I got to the, like, confrontation of Jake and James, the racial slurs had already been said. But I've talked to multiple people who said that they were there and they were called those racial slurs by him and walked away when they started calling them that.
Well, I'll tell you what,
want to be around it.
if that is true to both Mr. Skurlock and Elena, then that is probably one of the most ignorant things you could do during this type of protest. I will say that. Mr. Skurlock, Elena, hang on for a second. Mr. Skurlock, this is an important question for people that didn't know your son, that didn't get a chance to know your 22-year-old son, James. Can you talk a little bit about him? What type of son was he? Can you just give people a little bit of background on what type of son and he was? Can you talk about that?
He was a normal 22-year-old child out here in these streets. You know, he got in trouble, learned his lesson. He had a baby, he had a job. You know, he was really doing a lot of positive things on his way to go back to school. We finally talked him back into going back to school, you know, for his CDL and stuff. He had a lot of positive things going.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that for 1 second. I want to ask both of you the same question. I will start with Elena. What do you see as justice here? This man, Elena, easily could have killed you, as you know. I mean, it could have been you, and I can't imagine what you've been going through the last several days. What do you think justice should see here, and what do you think this bar owner deserves?
Quite frankly, I feel that with everything that has been brought forward from everybody that's staying around and just the main fact that he shot him in the neck. I think that this shows that he was. I think it's ultimately premeditated, but he's not going to get that. I know right now.
Do you think it's premeditated? Explain to us why you think that.
He knew what he was going to. He was antagonizing. His father was there. His father's an open racist. He himself, Jake, is an open homophobe and racist. I know people that I work with that have gone to the Hive and been kicked out because they are trans, because they wanted to use the bathroom and they said that they couldn't. I know people that have been openly kicked out of the Hive because of Jake.
Fair enough. Sorry to cut you off. I just want to let Mr. Skurlock chime in on this. Mr. Skurlock, what is justice for you? What do you see as justice here?
Actually, is having my moment in court.
Hmm.
I'm praying that I could get a conviction. You know, Nebraska's good for second-degree murder, and let's work it out. How come I couldn't get the Nebraska Work It Out program? I mean, everybody else did it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, question for Elena. When Jake Gardner took his weapon and put it over his shoulder, do you think that he knew that the person he was shooting was African American?
Was what?
Was African American? Do you think that he knew the race of the person that he was shooting?
Absolutely. He knew. He knew who was in conference. He was talking to James right in front of him. He knew who grabbed him behind him.
Well, let me just say this. Elena, I think you showed a lot of heroism in that moment where you're trying to diffuse a situation and you reacted, and I would never fault you for that. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And to Mr. Skurlock, I can't say I'm sorry enough. A father should never have to bury his son. It just seems like this was a needless situation. It should have never happened to begin with. And I really thank you, sir, for coming on and sharing your story. And I wish you the best of luck during this very difficult time for you and your family. To both of you, thank you so much for your time and for coming on. And hopefully we could, sir, you remember your son in those positive moments that he lived, his 22-year-old shortened life. And hopefully that's a blessing, sir. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. And I wish you both the best of luck in getting through this, okay?
Thank you.
All right, appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.
That was some powerful stuff, man. I have to say, I've done a lot of interviews in radio in 20 years, and that was some very powerful stuff. Here we have the woman who tackled the shooter, this bar owner, which, listen, I don't know how I would react in those situations. We don't. We can Monday morning quarterback and say, well, listen, if somebody has a gun, you got to do what they say. Don't physically attack them. But I'm not going to judge those two. I'm not going to. And the reason why, because I don't know how I would react in that situation. What I do know is that I don't believe this woman tackled him because she wanted people hurt or killed. I don't believe James Skurlock tackled this shooter because he wanted the shooter dead or wanted somebody dead. I do believe they were both trying to defuse the situation. Now, looking back on it, was it the right thing to do? Was it the safest thing to do? Probably not. But let me give out the number. What do you guys think about the story? I promise you this story is going to blow up. It has all the elements, ladies and gentlemen. It has race involved. It has a local business owner protecting his property allegedly involved. It has a father involved that was pushing, and then he got pushed. And it has the police involved. It has everybody involved, this story. This is going to be a national story. I guarantee you that. It already has started to be one. So I want to give out the number. What do you guys think about this story? Do you think this bar owner had the right to shoot James Skurlock? Or do you side with his father, who we just had on the show, who's saying, no, this was race? Or the woman who we just had on, who also tackled the shooter, who also said this was about race, they're known racists. What do you think about that? Let me give out the number, 702-257-5396. Again, if you want to be a part of this conversation, 257-5396.
And Brian, I've been in the news business a long time, and I can't remember a time where the story, any one of these stories could be a front page story. Ahmaud Arbery was a front page story. He got swept off the front page. You got this story. That could be a top story. Coronavirus. You got a cop here in Vegas last night that was shot in the head. I've never seen so many big standalone stories get swept away within a matter of hours by something equally as crazy.
Well, and COVID is suddenly gone.
Well, it's not gone.
Well, it's on the back. It's on the back burner.
No one is discussing COVID. There hasn't been a death in Nevada in 3 days. Cases are down all over the country since we've reopened. So that's very interesting.
And that was happening anyway, and you're right. The riots and all of this have pushed it on the back burner.
Right, but I think that the riots, I think COVID getting 40 million people out of work, combined with what happened in in Minneapolis, along with just the the thought process of oppression and inequality has led to this situation. I think it's just kind of a perfect storm at this point.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. As I mentioned, we're going to
Not
take
to mention it's summertime too.
As I mentioned, we're going to take some calls on this story. Okay, sit tight, those of you that are on hold. Your thoughts on, defending your property. Was this defending your property, or was this defending his life? Did he feel like his life wasn't threatened? Race relations, anything we've talked about in the first segment. A police officer shot and killed. Well, I shouldn't say killed. I hope I'm wrong on that one. I misspoke. Shot and in a very grave situation right now. I think that's very fair to say. In front of Circus yesterday, another officer involved shooting in front of the federal courthouse. All these subjects we've talked about. Now it's your turn. Now it's your turn to tell us and share your opinions. 702-257-5396. Again, 257-5396. Your phone calls coming up next right here on the Vegas Take.
Hey, I'm Andy.
Well, that started
If
out
you don't
rocky,
know me,
but you did a
it's
good
probably
job
because I'm
sorting it
not
out,
famous.
Ryan.
But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 6655 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 6655. Enjoy.
Joe Biden was in Philadelphia today to call for police reform in the wake of the George Floyd killing and criticizing the president for dividing the nation and only caring about those who voted for him.
My fellow Americans, we're facing a formidable enemies. They include not only the coronavirus and the terrible impact on the lives and livelihoods, but also the selfishness and fear that have loomed over our national life for the last 3 years. And I choose those words advisedly, selfishness and fear.
6 Atlanta police officers have been charged after a dramatic video showed them using a taser while pulling 2 young people from a car during protest over the death of George Floyd. Arlington County, Virginia pulls officers out of D.C. after they played a role in clearing protesters so the president could walk across the street to a church last night. I'm Mike Moss.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Lerner and Rowe Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by DuckDuckGo Privacy. Bridger Avenue still closed east of Casino Center Boulevard and to Las Vegas Boulevard. This is for ongoing police activity. And Las Vegas Boulevard still closed north and south between Clark and Carson Avenue. In the same area, take Casino Center Boulevard or Main Street instead as a good alternate to get around. Also a crash reported on the 95. Southbound at Valley View, vehicles are off to the right. Tired of being tracked online? DuckDuckGo can help. With one download, you can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers, all for free. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified. I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
This is Harry Jacobs from Credit Restoration of Nevada, inviting you to join me for the Credit Show, Saturday mornings between 9 and 10, here on the new 101.5 FM and 720 AM, KDON.
Hi, Doug Basham here. Join me Saturday afternoons from 2 to 4, and I'll tell you what your conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda hate media isn't. You're welcome. That's Saturday afternoons, 2 to 4. Be there.
The news in Las Vegas right now isn't good. The economic impact to our city from coronavirus is impossible to project, but one thing is for certain. Handle Law Firm is here to help. Clark County is our home, and we promise Handle Law Firm is not going anywhere. We're here to help you and our city through the coronavirus pandemic and its aftermath. If you need help with your debt,
call Handle Law 702-818-3888.
Sean Hannity, weekdays noon to 3 p.m. Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM. KDON.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Wow, that was some powerful stuff when you have the father of a 22-year-old who was just shot and killed the other day. And then the woman who tackled the shooter moments before his son was shot. We just had both of them on the line. It happened in Omaha. Certainly covering that story. We're covering the national news, sadly, that broke out right here in Las Vegas, right in front of Circus Circus. A Metro police officer shot behind the head, someone sneaks up behind him while he's trying to make an arrest. He is in very grave danger right now. It's not looking good. We hope he pulls through. And another officer-involved shooting that took place in front of the courthouse, the federal courthouse downtown yesterday. So many topics to get to, but I want this to be about you. We have so many guests on this show. Sometimes we don't always have time to take calls, but I want to dedicate this segment to that. We want your voices to be heard. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's start off with Alex. Alex, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. This is really a horrible situation that's going on in this country. It's really too bad. I feel bad for that parent, Mr. Spurlock. Let me tell you something. I think, Brian, here's the problem we're having. Your show is really concentrating a lot on the racist situations happening in the country, but it seems like it's because a white person does something to a black person. I'm a Hispanic, okay, and I look white, but when I lived in California, I was harassed, jumped, as they say. My mom was attacked twice, okay? My car got stolen. I almost got murdered in Los Angeles. If I didn't have a weapon, I wouldn't be talking to you. And guess who caused them? Black people, on me. So don't make it seem like there are not racist black people out there.
Okay, so Alex, let me jump in.
There's a lot of that.
Okay,
I think the last couple of days have certainly exposed that on a national level as well.
So Alex, let me jump in.
Alex.
Okay, Alex, let me jump in. I hear you, Alex. Let me jump in. Stay on the line. First of all, I'm sorry that you, your friends, your family have had to. I know. Hang on a second. Just let me respond to what you said. I'm sorry that you've had to deal with that, your family, your friends. That's horrible. Never once on this show, never once in my life have I ever said that the only people that can be racist are white people. There is no question that African Americans can be racist, that minorities can be racist. And by the way, sadly, some of them are. If anyone looks at me because of the color of my skin, because I'm white, and makes judgments about me, they can go to hell as far as I'm concerned, because it's ignorance. And so, I have never insinuated that, Alex, and I want you to understand that.
But you just did that to me earlier, Brian.
You made
you looked at me for the color of my skin and assumed that I was privileged.
So
I would argue that the privilege in the United, or that you talk about it being much more difficult to ascend to become what you want to be. I think it's all about how much money you have. I think that it's much harder when you're poor to make something of yourself than it is regardless of the color of your skin.
So, Alex, hang on 1 second, sir, because I need to respond to what JD just said, because it's not factually accurate.
No, it is. In my opinion,
I know in your mind it is.
That's factually accurate.
I understand in your mind it is, but that's your mind, and you're wrong. The reason why...
How can you say that I'm wrong there, Brian? You can't just say that I'm wrong.
Okay, well, I'm going to give my explanation now. In my mind, you're wrong.
Okay, you can give your explanation, and you can disagree with me.
You're not allowing me to. Can I give my explanation, please? Thank you. I wanted to go back to the caller, but you said something that is not factually accurate. The reason why I looked at
How is my opinion not factually accurate?
Let me know when I can talk for 20 seconds, please. Maybe 25 if you're going to be very generous to me. Thank you.
I'll give you 33.
That's very nice of you. Just
You're
text
welcome.
on your phone or do whatever it is you're doing.
10:37.
All right, thank you. So, JD interrupted and he said that, you called me white privilege. Well, here's why I said that.
Because I'm white.
Okay, you gave me 8 seconds there. Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll see if he can go 30 without interrupting me. The reason why I said that is because he was diminishing what minorities have to go through on a regular basis. We had Caleb Herring on the line, an African-American police officer who agrees with me. And I'm going to listen to what Caleb Herring says, a very intelligent young man who's a Metro cop, has lived a very successful life. And he talked about the trials and tribulations that a minority like him has had to go throughout his life, and how it is not the same as being white in this country. Caleb Herring agrees with me. You were making statements that I believe someone who is of white privilege would make, and I disagreed with your comments, and I stand by everything I said. Now I'm going to go back to you, Alex. I know you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
And I'm going to respond to that.
Brian, on what you just said, as a Hispanic, I grew up in one of the worst areas in Los Angeles, all right? And you know what? I did not make an effort to get an education, all right? I should have done better. But you know something? In that same school, I saw people from India, people from Vietnam, Korea, get valedictorian. Today they are doctors and lawyers and big
Sure.
businessmen, and they went to the worst schools. And I respect the officer absolutely, because I'm not going to argue with anybody's experiences in their life. But you know something, to use that every single time, that's the color and it's the color. Then go look at the people from
Okay.
India. It's stunning. And I think there was one other subject that JD. I am going to say this clearly. You guys know very well I went down with my 3 Colombian military nephews to
Right.
protect my business.
You talked about that yesterday. Yeah.
And let me tell you something. JD, from what I'm hearing from Brian and a lot of people is, if looters come into your business, what you should do is hand over whatever you have. So this is what I'm going to do for all you leftists down there.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
going to go to my house, and I'm going to take everything out of my house. I'm going to tell my father, that's 90 years old, put everything on the street.
all right, Alex, hang on.
No, and I see
Being interrupted again.
what Brian is saying is that if it's basically not worth it. Like, for example, if someone comes in and they break your windows and they steal your things, well, you have insurance. Okay, that doesn't mean anything.
So I'll
if you come in and you try to steal something from me, and I tell you not to steal from me, and you attack me, and I have a weapon, I'm in the right to do what I have to do under those circumstances.
I wasn't talking
but no,
about,
like, and Alex is totally right. That
I wasn't talking about attacking
right now.
somebody.
The narrative is, oh, it's okay. It's
Okay.
just looting. It's just rioting. It's not that big of a deal. It's not being 6 feet under the ground.
Nobody
It's
said
not your life.
Again, nobody said
No, but
that. You're once again
that's
being
the
factually
that's the
inaccurate.
national narrative right now,
That's
Brian.
not my narrative. You
That's
mentioned my
the
name.
thought
It's
process.
not my
You
narrative.
have
You
mentioned it
mentioned my
multiple
name.
times. You
It's
said,
not-
well, it's not worth it. It doesn't make
let me
a
know
difference.
what I can respond.
So much. If you're the business that you've worked very hard for, that you put hundreds of thousands of dollars into, and thousands of hours into, they can't just come in and just steal your things because it's a riot, because it's a protest over inequality and oppression.
Guess what?
I understand that, Brian. I get your thought. I get your thought as far as where you're coming from, but that doesn't mean that that's okay. It's not. And right now, there's a legitimate thought process across the country that it is justified because of what has happened with the inequality with African Americans and the police treatment and oppression, that it's okay to just come in and destroy businesses, a lot of which are minority owned.
That's okay. Another thing that you're saying that's not factually accurate. Nobody said it's okay to riot. Nobody said it's okay to loot. Now it's my turn.
Then why is it happening?
Now it's my turn. Now it's my turn. You just went on a diatribe. Now it's my turn. I never
Brian,
said.
you go on
let me know.
diatribes 6 times an hour.
Well, if
I go
all right,
on
then I'll
one,
tell you
maybe
what.
a week.
Okay, not true.
Maybe a week.
Not true. You interrupt me every 5 seconds.
Because
like
you're constantly
right now.
talking.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get to.
It's hard not to interrupt if you constantly talk.
Okay, well, it's hard to do a show when you go to the bathroom 3 times every show too. But I still do it, and I don't complain about it. But
You go to the bathroom 3 times too?
Yes, you do.
No, you do?
Not 3 times.
You do?
No, you do.
No.
You do.
Yeah,
You do.
probably once
I
or
can
twice.
smell it from my bathroom right now. I can actually
you
smell
can't.
it. Yes, I can.
No, there's no way you can.
100%.
150%.
I can smell it. Right
Ridiculous
now.
tangent, but you can't.
Okay.
You're
Well,
wrong.
it's not a tangent. I'm just
Okay.
like I speak the facts on this show. I think
you're
right
being factually
now. All
inaccurate.
So I'd like to get back to the phone calls. But
Stein will be complaining.
I would like to get back to the phone calls at 702-257-5396. But again, you just said some things that I've never said. Again, nobody is saying it's okay to riot. Nobody's saying it's okay to burn down buildings. That is factually inaccurate. You couldn't find me one prominent person. I know you're about to interrupt me again, but if you could let me speak after 10 seconds. I know you're saying it's okay. There's not that people are saying it's okay. There's not one prominent Democrat out there that has said that. And as far as what Alex says, and as far as what you say, the law is on my side. You can have your opinion in your own head all you like, JD, but the law is very clear. And it says unless you feel your life is in danger, not your products, not your property, your life has to be in danger in order for you to shoot somebody. That is the law. You can have all the opinions you want, but I am going to back the law. And I am going to back a Metro cop who came on our show today over somebody like you. You can have your feelings or your opinions. Doesn't mean you're right. You're wrong. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Austin, who's been waiting patiently on hold. Austin, you're next. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Austin?
Hey, guys. This show is full of opinions, and so it's time for me to state mine. It's very boring. It's not as glamorous as you guys sound, but you want to solve the issue. It's not going to solve it, but it's going to cut it down by probably at least half, okay? This all goes back to one thing: parenting. Parenting.
I agree.
You don't come out shooting people in the back of the fucking head.
Whoa.
I get passionate.
I think we caught that one.
It's parenting, guys. Where are they at?
All right, I agree. I agree with you, and I do talk about this all the time. You know, Austin, I'll even say, I've been a basketball referee part-time for 20 years, and I see the way parents act in front of their kids, and it's disgusting. In most situations, when you have a kid that is a criminal or is acting in a criminal manner, usually, not all the time, but usually, They don't have the right upbringing. The parents aren't there. Again, not all the time, but so so I hear what you're saying, and I do not disagree with you at all. Now, I don't want to simplify.
You probably ref some of my games. I see it on a daily basis while I YouTube of the Jones Bank.
Sure.
There are people out there of all colors who are professional, and there are people out there of all colors who are not.
I agree.
Look at their parents, man.
Yeah.
Every time.
I don't think it's the only issue when we talk about, but I do agree with you, and I appreciate the call, Austin. I do agree with you.
Thank you for talking more about that.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Parenting, absolutely. And when you look at the Clark County School District and all these dumb kids that go to class and abuse the teachers verbally and don't respect adults, there's no question. Parenting is a huge issue. So I appreciate the phone call. Sorry, I got to get to some other calls.
Good call, Austin.
I
Thanks.
appreciate it. 257-5396. Kurt, you're next up on the Vegas tape.
Hey, what's up, Kurt?
Kurt, did we lose you?
Real fast.
Sure, go ahead, Kurt.
Make them real fast. First point is I'm very sorry for the man's son. That's horrible. I have 4 kids. I would never be the same again. Second point is he was backing up, so it's hard to say, and it's a little annoying to call anyone else a hero when they're approaching him. And then the last point is Antifa is out there. They are anti-American. They're told to say that all white people are fascists. They're educated that way. This is a big money scheme. This is a big business, and it's behind George Soros.
Yeah, I'm not going to say Soros guarantee, but Antifa was just declared a domestic terrorist organization and all connected groups, and you're going to see that some Black Lives Matter members were connected, some factions were connection to Antifa. So, yes, some, not all,
All right,
obviously.
so let me respond to your Antifa comments, which you have zero evidence and proof, sir, to back the fact that hold on, both of you.
There's logos. There's logos printed all over the country in various cities.
What was I going to say to finish that sentence? Can you give me the respect of letting me talk for more than 5 damn seconds? And now I'm getting annoyed. Stop interrupting me and let me finish.
Brian, you are constantly talking.
Would you like me to finish one sentence? You have no. You're laughing. I know it's funny to you. You're on your phone and it's funny. It's not funny to me. Let me finish.
Finish your sentence, Brian.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Of course.
I've only had to ask 8 times in this segment. It's not a joke. He made a comment about George Soros, and I'm making a sentence saying he has absolutely no evidence, and then you cut me off.
Actually, I agree with you.
There is no evidence to back the fact that George Soros is involved in any of this. And I am not going to entertain a caller that makes an ignorant statement like that. That's number one. Number two, the president decided to talk about Antifa on Twitter, and he's been talking about Antifa a lot. The majority of the people that are in these protests are not Antifa, okay? The majority of the people that are in these protests are good people that want change. Is Antifa a hate group? Do I condone violence? Absolutely not. But I find it interesting when someone calls up and their hatred is for Antifa, but you don't want to talk about the actual issues that this country is facing when it comes to minorities. I want to get to some of the other calls now.
It's not protest.
No spin.
We're talking about looting, rioting, and vandalism, not protesting. Stop mixing them together because they're totally different things.
Yeah,
one is a constitutional right, and one is a effing crime, Brian. There is a giant difference.
Say it wasn't a crime when you loot and riot. Have I ever said that on this show?
But that's what we're talking about.
Well, no,
criminals.
We're
talking about scum of the earth.
Okay, we're also talking. At least I'm talking. Also,
we're talking about thugs. We're talking about hoodlums. We're talking about. And it doesn't matter what color you are. You can be any single color. You can be white, Caucasian, or you can be white, black, Hispanic, Asian. Doesn't make a difference. It is all about your behavior. If you display criminal behavior, you are a criminal. Period. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about peaceful protesters.
That's what you're talking about.
To connect it to George Soros, for those who don't know who George Soros is, he's a prominent, very rich Democrat, Jewish, and he's basically a favorite of conspiracy theorists. That this man, it's anti-Semitic to even have that opinion. That this prominent, rich Jewish Democrat is funding chaos across the country, that he's funding caravans of South Americans coming over the border, that he's funding Antifa, that he wants people to loot and riot. That is a conspiracy theory.
I will not.
But why is it anti-Semitic? Why is it not just anti-George Soros?
I will not talk about and entertain conspiracy theories, whether it's you talking about it or whether it's a caller calling up making an ignorant statement. I will not entertain that on this show. And by the way, we're not just talking about violence as far as looters and people that burn down buildings. JD, that's not the only thing we're talking about here. We're also talking about the racial divide in this country and what minorities have to face on a daily basis.
And you're basically saying that African Americans across the country do not control their own destiny because they're looked at.
You're not putting words in my mouth. I think I've made my opinion very clear.
You're repeating African Americans right now.
What I'm doing is I'm taking the opinion of Caleb Herring, who happens to be an African American, over somebody who was raised and brought up as a white person in Omaha, Nebraska. That's what I'm doing. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Matt. Matt, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
What's up, Matt?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I just want to say one thing. I'm an American. I'm not a racial person. I've been in the medical background for 17 years. And my father, he has been a retired police officer from San Bernardino City for 28 years. And we looked at that video very extensively. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, you guys, but I'm going to say one thing, okay? Me as an EMT, we do not loan our vehicles, our ambulances, we do not loan them to police officers. And police officers do not loan their vehicles to us.
You're talking about George Floyd. Is that correct, sir? I just want to be clear for our listeners. You're talking about the George Floyd video. Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
Watch the video.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
He's saying no EMT shows up.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Not true. Not true. May I? Okay, I'm sorry. Sean, can we pot this guy down for a second? Okay. That I have personally researched that because somebody sent me a link and said, look, these aren't police. Please send it to me.
Yeah, that would be great.
After you get done sending the bricks and the urine.
I try to say things on this show from my heart. I've never said anything on this show that I don't mean. And I try to be as logical and
or in person, small group, or one-on-one. You cannot get better results. Great grades will come when your child understands the math. From elementary math to calculus, we have the best tutors, the best materials, and the best results. Now offering free parent seminars to help your child. What is Common Core? And more. Find out why parents are bragging and students are enjoying school again by calling 702-717-77. That's 702-768-1777. Or visit themathinstitute.com today. Tell them the Vegas Take said at Infinity, you don't get more math problems, you get solutions.
Your home for Sean Hannity. KDWN Las Vegas, KD2 Las Vegas, a Beasley Media Group station.
Special report protests across America. Outside the White House, correspondent Boris Sanchez with an update.
This intersection right outside Lafayette Park, just at the doorstep of the White House, was relative a few hours ago. Police had actually shut down traffic. They weren't even allowing protesters on the street. Now, obviously, they've taken to the front of the White House. There's now a barrier that was put out, an 8-foot-tall fence that was put up to keep protesters, demonstrators outside of Lafayette Park.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi accuses the president to unite the nation.
I would hope that the President of the United States would follow the lead of so many other presidents before him to be a healer in chief, not a fanner of the flame.
6 Atlanta police officers are being charged with using excessive force during an arrest of 2 college students in Atlanta Saturday night. I'm Mike Moss. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the violence with the death of George Floyd must stop. Correspondent Linda Kenyon.
Senator Schumer says everyone saw U.S. soldiers deployed to clear the streets near the White House yesterday afternoon. Tear gas against peaceful demonstrators.
So President Trump could wave a Bible, not read a Bible, not even his Bible, as a prop. It was a
The president stood with a Bible in front of the historic St. John's Episcopal Church, which had been set on fire over the weekend.
President Trump is telling New York to call out the guards, the losers and lowlife. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo chides the president for using his bully pulpit to focus on looters so that it doesn't have the killing of George Floyd. Cuomo also says New York police have not responded forcefully enough in their attempts to deal with the protest. I'm Mike Moss.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Letterman Road Traffic Studio.
USDEA 360 strategy. An accident reported on Rainbow at Alta Drive now in the clearing stage. A crash at Sahara eastbound near Las active. and causing delays. Avoid slowing. Take an alternate like Desert Inn or Charleston instead. Las Vegas Boulevard remains closed north and southbound between Clark Avenue and Carr near the courthouse. This is for ongoing police activity. Take an alternate like Casino Center Boulevard or Main Street. Heroin, meth, and opioids grip our community. It's time to wake up Vegas and care about. Visit wakeup-vegas.com for resources to change lives. John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
I've always wanted to learn another language, but every time I try, it never sticks. So I decided to give Babbel a try, and I really like the teaching method of the app. I started with the beginner lesson on Babbel, and it's simple words and phrases, and soon you're putting those words into a conversation. Each lesson takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and they're all really different, which keeps the app is really smart. It actually keeps track of the words I'm struggling with, so I can practice them and get better. I chose Babbel because it was created by real language teachers around real life, how people actually communicate, and what they care about. I can't wait to use my new language skills in the real world. Dos cervezas, por favor.
With Babbel, get conversational in Spanish, French, German, and more. It just takes 10 to 15 minutes a day. Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com, mobile app, and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com, Babbel.com.
It's open enrollment season, and Medishare is the Christian ministry that saves most families about $500 a month. Google Medishare and see if it's a fit for you. Medishare, healthcare you can believe in.
A Home for Spot reminds you with this hot desert heat, never leave a dog in a car unattended, even with the window open. Also, remember to protect your animals from the hot summer rays and keep them well hydrated. Keep in mind, is too hot for your feet, they're also too hot for your dog's paws. And dogs always want to play, but don't let them overexert themselves in this heat. And if you see excessive panting, discolored gallity problems, seek help immediately. If you're looking for a new friend who needs a forever home, go to ahomeforspot.com. That's spot.com.
Attorneys Judah Zakalik and Xenophon Peters here from Panda Law Firm.
Did you know that Panda Law Firm handles debt settlement and bankruptcy?
This means when you call Panda for help with your debt, our attorneys can talk to you about options.
And Panda attorneys can do things that other debt companies can't.
Like defend you if you get sued by a creditor, stop garnishments, and help you rebuild your credit once you're out of debt.
When you need help with your debt, Panda Law Firm, voted Best of Las Vegas Gold for the third year in a row.
Call Panda Law, 702-818-3888.
The opinions of the hosts on KDWN are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective.
It's a little extreme. Here we go.
Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro, dealing with our obsessive-compulsive disordered producer. I touched his muffin and took a bite with my fingers, and now he won't touch it. So this is the stuff that we have to deal with here. Haste on the Vegas Take. Anyway, welcome back to the show. I'll tell you something that the country has to deal with. That is the petulant, immature child that is the president of the United States. Let me explain what he did yesterday, in case you didn't already know. Let me start with...
Why would he not?
Let's go with that for a second, if I may. So yesterday, there was a peaceful protest going on in Washington, D.C. during the afternoon hours, midday. The president decided to take a little stroll outside of the White House with members of his staff, white members of his staff, by the way. I'll get to that in a second. He walked a few... Well, you can be tired of it all you want, but I'm still going to talk
Tired
about
of the identity politics.
All right, well...
we are all
if I can
citizens
continue,
of the United States of America, my friend.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that sentiment, but I'm going to get through these cuts and I'll explain why I said that. The president decided to break up a peaceful protest. Police officers decided to shoot rubber bullets. Some people were injured. There were no arrests made during those peaceful protests in those afternoon hours. That is just a fact, according to the police chief. So, the president decided to walk a few blocks for nothing, not to pray. He decided to go in front of the church, the St. John's, I believe that's what it was, right? The St. John's Church Diocese.
Yeah,
if I could,
do you know why that church matters, Brian?
I want to get to the actual story, not why the church matters. I want to get to the actual story of why we're talking about this, and that is the fact that the president decided to not walk into that church, to not open up a Bible, but hold a Bible in his hand, hold it up, and stand there like a buffoon for 10 seconds, and take pictures like he was some sort of supermodel, playing to the cameras. Then he invites 4 white members of his staff next to him. They were white. That's factually accurate. Ben Carson wasn't there. To take a few more pictures for 10 seconds. Then he leaves, and he goes right back to the White House with Jared Kushner and his daughter and Bill Barr. And there is no question, and there is no denying this, and even Republicans agree, that this was no more than a photo op. That's exactly what it was. So Anderson Cooper went a little off yesterday on CNN. I haven't seen him this angry since the Carolyn Goodman interview. But Anderson Cooper decided to go off on Trump over this photo op because that's exactly what it was. Have a listen to this.
And now sources are telling my colleague Kevin Liptak that in part the reason the president made this trip outside the gates of the White House, a really rare trip where you do not often see the president walk out of the front door of the White House, walk across Lafayette Square and come over here to St. John's, was driven in part that he was upset by coverage of the fact that he had been rushed to the underground bunker on Friday night during those protests that you saw breaking out here in front of the White House. That is what sources are saying, Andrew.
Yeah, oh my God, Anderson, oh my God.
We are in trouble. This country is being led by a man.
He wanted to be seen outside the gates.
Of course he did. He was taken to a bunker, and he's hiding in a bunker, and he is embarrassed that people know that. So what does he have to do? He has to sic police on peaceful protesters so he can make a big show of being, the little big man walking to a closed down church. And then, he always talks about the world laughing, that the world are laughing at the governors right now. They're not laughing at the governors. They're standing in horror over what is happening. The only people that the world is laughing at is the President of the United States. And this event, as I said, if it wasn't so dangerous and disgusting, it would be funny because it is so low rent and just sad. I mean, I plan to come tonight and trying to be as calm and reasonable as and straightforward in just doing this hour of news, and this happened, and I just can't believe that this is what we have. This is the United States of America. This is the president we have. They wanted a disruptor. Well, yeah, that's what a disruptor. That's what disruption is.
It's not often that Anderson Cooper also uses the term thug himself, but have a listen to this.
The president seems to think that dominating black people, dominating peaceful protesters is law and order. It's not. He calls them thugs. Who is the thug here? Hiding in a bunker? Hiding behind a suit? Who is the thug?
All right, so I have one more cut.
When was the second cut, Brian?
So I have one more cut to get to, and then we'll...
It's later in his show.
Yeah.
Later in his show.
One more cut to get to, and then we'll get to the opinion part of this. But this is a very important piece of audio here. Why? Because we have the bishop who leads the Diocese of Washington responding to Donald Trump's photo op. Now, this is important because this church was not notified that the president was going to use their church as a backdrop for a photo op. And keep in mind that there were plenty of peaceful protesters that were roughed up yesterday because the president decided to do that, a photo op. So this is the bishop live on CNN talking about this Trump photo op. Have a listen to this.
Let me be clear. The president just used a Bible, the most sacred text of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and one of the churches of my diocese, without permission, as a backdrop for a message antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and everything that our churches stand for. And to do so, as you just said, he sanctioned the use of tear gas by police officers in riot gear to clear the church yard. I am outraged.
Okay, that's the bishop herself commenting on the president's actions. And I think it's very, very important to play that audio because that's her using her church as a backdrop for Donald Trump's photo op. Listen, let me be very clear on this. Presidents have used opportunities for photo ops for years. This isn't anything new. But it is something new.
Just Donald Trump.
But again, you're interrupting me and letting me finish my thought.
You've been talking for 7 minutes, Brian.
Okay, no, I've been playing cuts, and we just started the segment 5 minutes ago. So you didn't let me finish my sentence. So I'll start over. This isn't anything new that presidents have used opportunities for photo ops. However, we are in a time of crises in this country. You had literally peaceful protests, thousands of people in front of the White House that were exercising their amendment rights to do so. And those people were not only pushed back, but physically removed, some of whom were removed with rubber bullets. Why? Why? Because the president was threatened? No. Because the president of the United States decided that he wanted to take the opportunity as a photo op to hold a Bible in his hand in front of a closed-down church for 10 seconds. That is exactly what took place.
No, it's not, Brian.
Oh, it wasn't a photo op?
No, it was not a photo op. No.
What happened then?
He was showing strength in religion, Brian, because that church, you can laugh all you want.
Showing strength?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. I understand you don't understand what that means. That's fine. But he was showing.
That's how you show strength.
He was showing strength in religion because that church was desecrated the night before. That church is where every single president since the start of the United States has gone and prayed, Brian.
Okay.
That's why he did that. And do you know that if he asked them to disperse, now you don't even know if they used tear gas. In fact, rumors are that it was actually an air canister that was used.
They used rubber bullets.
Okay.
We know that 150%.
But do you know that if those protesters were asked if they would move so the president could walk through?
I'll answer that question.
And Anderson Cooper and
would you like me to answer that question?
No, you can think about that one and then answer.
I don't need to think
just like
about
you made me sit there for 9 minutes. You can sit there for 10 minutes while I go through a diatribe, and then you can answer all my questions.
I was going through audio. Would you like to pick us audio the night before?
And Anderson Cooper was making fun of Donald Trump for being the little man in his bunker.
Yeah, he deserves it.
No, he doesn't deserve
he
it.
does.
No, he doesn't deserve it, Brian. He's a 72-year-old man. He is the president of the United. He's the most important person, whether you like it or not, in the United States of America.
He won't be in.
Donald Trump is. You want to make a bet on that?
So you're defending
Donald Trump is going to win the election.
Okay.
It'll be the biggest
win. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? You do this every show.
You said he won't be. You said he won't be,
But
right?
you're the one who brought up the election.
I'm saying Donald Trump.
Why won't you address what we're actually
Donald
talking
Trump is
about?
the most important man in the country.
So you won't address what we're talking about.
Brian.
Okay.
He is the most important man in the country.
Can you focus on what we're actually talking
And
about?
he is going. And
what does
you
it have to do with it?
You have to protect the most important man in the country.
What are you talking
That's
about?
why
We're talking about a photo op.
No. You're calling him. You made fun of him being in the bunker, and I'm saying the reason that he walked out there and he said, "Hey, I'm not going to let these." And there was no peaceful protesting the night before.
We're not talking about the night before. We're talking about
in fact, Brian. Hey,
again, you're not.
Why are we not talking? Why are we not talking
about
the 60 Secret Service
all
officers?
you are all over the place. You want to change the subject.
I'm not changing the
Yes,
subject.
you are.
No, I'm not, Brian.
Excuse me. I'll tell you why you're not.
Why are we not talking about the 60 Secret Service officers that were injured by those people on Lafayette Street the night before?
All right. I'll tell you why. I'll answer your question.
Because you don't want to talk about it. Because you're biased against Donald Trump.
Can I answer your question?
Because you're not going to recognize the fact that these governors and these Democratic mayors are not letting their police force handle these looters and these rioters. And at the same time, you are turning an entire race into victims in the United States, Brian.
Here's two things.
That is why all those things are taking place.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm absolutely finished.
Thank you. I am sick of two things that you do every single day on this show. First of all, you start by asking me a question, and then you don't let me answer it, and then you keep going. If you want to ask me a question, do it at the end of the statement, not at the beginning, and don't answer the question for me. That's number one. Number two, I'm sick and tired of starting a segment and focusing on a specific subject. If you disagree with my opinion, that's fine. But hold on, you're about to interrupt me again.
This sounds like an off-air conversation.
Thank you for interrupting me again. No, it's an on-air conversation. I am sick and tired of because this is why I'm frustrated.
Oh, you're doing groupthink.
No, I'm not doing groupthink. I'm doing Radio 101, and I wish you would get it. I'm tired of talking about a subject, and specifically, we are talking about the president, in my personal opinion, and many Republicans agree with me on this throughout, on Fox News, even right-wing radio, they agree that this is a photo op. Now, you can disagree with that. That's fine. We are specifically talking about the photo op. Hold on. We're not.
It was obviously an opportunity to take a photo.
Hold on.
I'm explaining the context.
You said it was not a photo op. That's what you just said a minute ago, and I am disagreeing with you, and I am telling you that right-wing conservatives and Republicans throughout the country agree that it was a photo op. Now, wait, it has nothing to do with... Hold on.
What was it about, though, Brian?
It has nothing to do with what you just mentioned about the president winning or not the elections in November. It has nothing to do with other things. I'm focusing on this specific subject that we are talking about, and I wish you would focus on what we are talking about now. If you disagree with me, I have no problem with that. Let's discuss it. You're entitled to your opinion. But stop talking about whether the president's going to win in November. Stop talking about
you
how...
brought that up.
You brought it up.
You said he was not...
You brought it up.
I said he's the most important man in the country.
I am not.
And you said he's not going to be, and I said he's going to win.
Let me ask you a very specific...
No, I said he was the most important man in the country.
That's all I said. And then you said he's going to win in November.
After you said he's going to lose.
Completely academic to this
conversation. You said he was going to lose first. That's why I responded.
We can get into it. I'm saying it's completely academic to this conversation.
You should have said that.
Okay. Well, you brought up a lot of things that you shouldn't have brought up. Okay.
Don't accuse me of this when it was you.
You do it.
Stop projecting.
I'm not projecting.
You said, and I
I'm trying to explain to you how we do a segment.
And I said,
okay.
I think he's going to win. In fact, I think he's going to win.
And now you're doing it again.
The biggest victory since Reagan. That's what I said.
And now you're doing it again. I don't want to talk about Reagan. I don't want to talk about who's going to win in November. We are specifically talking about this issue. And I would like your opinion on that.
And it's not
and I'm
an issue.
asking you a very specific. Well, in your opinion,
It's a circumstance.
not. You could explain why.
It's a situation.
Do you agree that this was a photo op? Yes or no?
Obviously, pictures were taken there. Yes.
So yes. Okay. So let's go with that for a second.
So,
Let me ask you another question.
Anytime Donald Trump
Let
is
me
in
ask
public, though, Brian, guess what?
Let me
It's
ask
a
you another
photo op.
question. Okay.
He's the most.
Let me ask you another question.
Photographed person in the country. Do you know why? Because he is the most important person.
Okay.
In the country.
Again, you're talking about things that don't matter.
Well, why are you surprised?
So now let me ask you another
photos
question.
taken
Okay.
of him?
If we can focus on this, you just said yes, you agree it was a photo op. My next question: do you think it's appropriate for the President of the United States for a photo op to allow police officers to shoot rubber bullets into peaceful protesters? Do you think that is appropriate?
Again,
yes or no?
I don't know the context. I don't know if the.
What do you mean you don't know the context? I saw the video.
I don't know if the protesters were asked to disperse and they refused to do so.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I have no idea.
So you're not going to answer that question. You're going to dodge the
I'm
question.
sorry, I really don't know.
All right. So we agree that it was a photo
I
op.
truthfully don't know.
All right. Fair enough.
No.
So
we agree that every time the president is in public, he's
this
photographed.
is a different circumstance.
No,
this
it's
isn't
not
a photo op in the White House or at a hospital. There's
Again,
a protest.
It's the exact, it's the exact same thing.
Excuse me. That
It
is
is
idiotic.
It is an opportunity
There are thousands
for
of people
Donald
in front of the White
Trump,
House
the President of the United
protesting. It
States,
is not the same.
To be photographed.
That is
That's what a
absurd.
photo op is, Brian.
So are you comfortable as a religious person? Are you comfortable?
I'm not
a
particularly religious
Let's
person,
assume you're
Brian.
an atheist.
I'm not an
Either or.
atheist either.
Okay, fair enough. But my
I'm
question.
just not particularly religious.
Fine. Are you comfortable with the President of the United States holding up a Bible for 10 seconds, taking a photo op in front of a church where he's not welcomed?
Absolutely, Brian, because every single president since the start of the United States has done the exact same thing, and it was desecrated the night before. Why do you not factor that in?
We're not talking about
the
that.
church.
We're talking about what was happening
church
at
was
that moment.
vandalized. That's why he did it. The church was vandalized.
Would you like me to
Washington
play the
Memorial was vandalized, Brian. That's why he did it.
No, that's not why he did it.
Yes, it is.
Oh, really? That's
Yes,
why he did it.
That is exactly
because
why he did it.
because the church was vandalized.
Yes, of
that's
course.
Why. So it had nothing to do with him personally.
It's a show. Well, it is a show of strength.
A show of strength. Yeah,
Yes.
he's very strong. He's very strong.
It is
very strong.
It is a show.
He walked 2 blocks, and the obese man walked 2 blocks. But you're right. He's very strong. He's very strong. He showed his ego. He showed his narcissism, and he made sure that he could walk his 2 blocks in front of a church. And you're calling him strong for holding up a damn Bible for 10 seconds? That's the opposite of strong. He's weak.
He's not weak. You're weak.
No, he's weak.
That is a show of strength.
He's weak.
That is a show of strength.
I'm not weak. You're being ignorant.
I'm not being ignorant.
weak.
You're being obtuse. That is a show of strength
Obtuse.
by
You
the
don't know what that
president.
word means.
Of course I do.
All right.
You're not.
Shawshank Redemption.
Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
Who's
actually.
in it?
It's a very good movie.
It's
Morgan Freeman and
it's
Tim
the number
Robbins. That's
2
where you
movie
got
on
it from.
IMDb.
Yeah, I know.
Possibly
That has
the
a
best
lot
movie
to
of
do.
all time.
That has a lot to do.
You
with
brought
what
it
we're
up.
talking about, Yeah. All right.
Blame it on me.
So we agree.
Because I diverted the subject. Because that's
So
what
we both agree that this was a photo op, and
we
then
agree that the
hold
president is photographed.
Okay.
But the reason he went there is
Can I
it
finish
was a
my
show of strength, and I
question?
will admit this: it was to his religious base
Yeah.
because they need to see those things.
Well, that's appropriate.
So that is very
all right, so
appropriate.
we
Brian,
both agree.
Brian, the monument or the church
All
itself.
right, so you're defending his behavior
Of
yesterday.
course it is.
Okay. You might be one of the only people in the country that are doing that, but okay.
Brian,
good for
the
you.
church was on fire.
That
the
is
church
not-
was vandalized.
Excuse me. He didn't even mention that.
It is a historic.
Okay, so
church.
let me ask you a
That doesn't
question.
mean that it didn't take place. It's not part of the context.
So let me
Brian,
ask you a
just 'cause it didn't
question
mention
then. If that is why he did this, you believe that the reason why he did this was because the church was on fire. Why didn't he? Hold on. Let me ask the question first. Why didn't he bring that up yesterday?
it. Again, Brian, I don't know why he didn't bring it up. Well, that's
the reason that he didn't bring it up, and you don't know why. I know. You don't know what happened with the protesters. You don't know why he didn't bring it up. Only if it is it goes
just
to your
because he didn't
narrative.
bring it up doesn't mean he doesn't think
Come
that.
on.
though.
Why didn't he call the church ahead of time and say, "Can I come by?"
Yeah, why didn't he do that? Why didn't he call the diocese? Why didn't he call the bishop? If he wanted to have a conversation with them about the church, I would have had no problem with that. Why didn't he do any of those
Brian,
things? If it was about the church,
this is a historic.
ridiculous.
This is a historical.
Oh,
church.
you're making excuses.
I'm not making excuses. You just don't understand.
Answer Stein's question.
I'm not talking to Stein.
I'm asking you to answer Stein's question. Why didn't he call in advance?
Again,
the
I don't know.
church?
Do you know?
I'm
It's
asking
a
you.
rhetorical question.
Yeah,
I don't know
why.
either.
I'll tell you why. Because he's a narcissistic idiot.
I ask Brian rhetorical questions all the time. He is not a narcissistic idiot,
No,
Brian.
you're right. He's not narcissistic. He doesn't think about himself. No, JD, you're
You think
absolutely
about
right.
yourself?
I'm not the
Constantly.
president. I'm not the president.
Constantly.
I'm not the president of the
I
United
would
States.
argue that you're more of a narcissist.
So you want
than
to?
Donald
So
Trump
now
is,
you
Brian.
want to make? So now you're saying I'm projecting, and now you want to make a comparison. Hold on.
That
now you want to
being
make a
said,
comparison between me and the
again,
president.
this
This is a ridiculous conversation. It's so idiotic.
This
I don't even want to talk
monument,
about it
or
anymore.
this church
This is such a dumb conversation,
was
JD.
burnt.
You are
and it was vandalized.
Right, but he didn't call the church ahead of time. He didn't mention it
Donald
yesterday.
Trump was there.
Right.
And it does,
in your opinion, yet he didn't mention it yesterday all day long.
But
it's so idiotic.
At the same time, it was definitely
All
a
right.
play toward his evangelical base.
Fine.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I will admit that.
All right.
Which
Yep.
isn't wasn't a bad move considering how important this church is.
It might have been better if he stood there with the church, what do you call them, like clergy?
Somebody who represents
and
the
sang
church,
Amazing Grace. That would have been.
Yeah, somebody who represents the church. This is one of the most idiotic conversations I've ever had in my life. It really is. It's crazy. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. We'll take a few phone calls on this.
Yeah, let's do it.
What do you guys think about this? You on my side? You on JD's side? Let's have a conversation about it. 257-5396. Let's talk to Robert. Robert, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Robert?
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, listen, just to let you know, I am a Trump supporter. And the minute I saw him on TV standing in front of that church, not saying a thing, I just don't know who advises him, or is he just the biggest idiot in the world right now?
That's a good question.
You mentioned it, too. Why didn't call ahead and have a thing with the clergy and say that this church, they tried to torch it last night and it survived, like this country's going to survive?
Right.
Beyond me that he just stood there looking like a monkey.
Robert, I first of all, let me just say this. I appreciate your intelligence, being intellectually honest, Robert. I will give you my hypothesis or my reason to your question, and it's a very valid question you ask. I think the reason is Trump just thinks about himself. This was a photo op for him. He wants to feel strong and wants to look like Kim Jong-un, because I know he looks up to Kim Jong-un. Robert, what would you say to that? Do you agree with that? Because that's what I think.
Well, I think a little bit, but let me just say one other thing, too. You know, you heard this stuff about he's hiding in the bunker, this and that. He was down at the Space Center on Saturday, and I was flicking the channels around because I wanted to watch all this going on. And he made a speech that anybody who listened to would have been proud of him. And it wasn't on CNN, it wasn't on MSNBC, and they're just at fault for all this, too, because all they want to do is make him look bad.
Well, I think there's
That's totally true. And CNN is an absolute embarrassment right now. They were pretending like the protests or that New York City, what was going on in New York City was totally peaceful protesting. There was rioting taking place all night long, and CNN didn't cover a piece of it.
All right, so let me respond to what that caller just said, and I appreciate it. Your call, Robert. Yes, I appreciate it.
Good call, Robert. Thank you.
If somebody writes a speech and gives it to the president to read a teleprompter, I don't give and by the way, this goes for any president. I don't give them credit for it. I don't think it's a great thing they did. The president could have decided to reach out to that church, to reach out to the bishop. He could have decided to even mention the fact that that church had started to burn down. He didn't do any of the above, and that is disgusting. I think we all could agree on that, and Robert, I know you agree with that. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Matthew. Matthew, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Matthew?
Matthew, go ahead. You're next on the Vegas Take. All right.
Let's go to Andy.
All right, let's go to another caller. You guys got to be ready to go. 702-257-5396. Andy, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Andy?
Hey, what's up? Hey, so I don't know, Brian, did you see the conference, the speech that he gave right before he went across the street?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
I thought it was the best speech of his presidency.
No, I disagree.
Yeah, so at the very end, what were the last statement that he made before leaving that conference?
Remind us. Go ahead and tell us. I'm not sure what that has to do with the photo op, but go ahead.
Well, he said he was going to go pay his respects.
Do you think he did that? You think that's why he went there, to pay his respects, to be in front of the church for 10 seconds holding up a Bible?
It was the symbol of him standing there.
Simple. Give me a break.
What do you mean give him a break? Brian,
Simple.
How can you say give me a break?
So let me explain.
I understand you don't like the president.
Let me explain.
But give him some credit for anything.
Not for yet. Not
it
for
is embarrassing right now.
No,
how little credit you give this guy.
Okay, no, you're.
I don't like Steve Sisolak, but I gave him credit 2 days ago for calling out the National Guard. You just refused to give Donald credit for anything ever.
So can I respond to the
that
caller?
speech was unbelievable for his presidency yesterday.
Can I respond to the caller, or do you continue on to preach your Donald Trump knee pad remarks?
There's no Donald Trump knee pad remark at all.
You're on your knees right now.
No, there's not.
Yes, it is.
I'm just giving him credit. There is a giant difference there. And I don't appreciate that association.
Well, I don't appreciate you saying the things you said about me.
Well, Brian, I mean,
take it or leave it, man.
You don't give Donald Trump any credit ever.
Well, I'm not giving you credit.
I mean, you have it in like 2 years.
Well, I'll switch it on you. I'm not going to give you any credit for this segment, okay? Does that make you feel better? I have my opinions on the President of the United States. I am going to continue with those opinions based on the photo op last night. And for somebody to call up, and we only have 30 seconds to go before we have to go to break, for somebody to call up and say it was so symbolic what the president did is an embarrassment, and that is low intelligence. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break.
So you're saying I'm stupid?
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I think it's a very stupid opinion that you have.
It's not stupid at all, Brian.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take your call. 702-257-5396. Again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 257-5396. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. It's the Vegas Take.
Maybe you can relate to this. A lot of people think they're stuck with their health plan. It costs too much, or for whatever reason, they just don't like it.
The great news, you are not stuck with it. There is a choice. It's called MediShare, and you could save so much. The typical savings for a family is $500 a month. Major difference maker. This is the affordable alternative to health insurance. And just to give you a little more info about MediShare, it's a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. It's worked beautifully for 26 years, has more than 400,000 members, and they've shared over $3 billion of each other's medical bills. So yes, they can help share your needs too. So you're not stuck. There's an excellent alternative, whether you're single or married, you got a family. MediShare is super flexible. You can choose an option that works for you and start saving lots of money. You can join anytime. They're great to talk to. No pressure. Call 844-91-BIBLE. That's 844-91-BIBLE. 844-91-BIBLE.
Parents, stop making excuses for your children and do something to help them for the rest of their lives. Sign up at Infinity the Math Institute for the best math tutoring in the country, the best online math tutoring in the world. We help struggling students excel and help successful students get to the next level. We are also here for parents, offering free seminars explaining what your students are learning, why it seems different from what you learned, and how you can help your child do better. We also offer super affordable SAT prep classes on Fridays before our super popular Friday Fun Nights, where students and parents meet like-minded and driven families in a fun and constructive atmosphere. Coming to Infinity will be the best decision you've ever made for your child. Call 702-768-1777 or visit themathinstitute.com and tell them the Vegas Take sent you for a free assessment. That's 702-768-1777, because at Infinity, you don't get more math problems, you get solutions.
Special report. Protests across America.
I am disappointed and outraged at what happened in New York City last night.
New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo, after iconic spots in Manhattan and elsewhere were damaged by looters and vandals. The mayor says he will extend a curfew through the weekend, but President Trump on Twitter says the National Guard should be called in to stop what the president calls lowlifes. In Fort Worth, Police Chief Ed Krause knelt and prayed with protesters who broke curfew instead of arresting them.
I hope it was meaningful. I hope that the people here saw our hearts. We certainly saw their hearts and that they were hurting.
A top National Guard official says the country saw less violence overnight, even as protests may have increased, with 18,000 Guard members assisting law enforcers in 29 states. I'm Jan Johnson.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Leonard Monroe Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by DuckDuckGo Privacy. Watch for a possible slowing due to a traffic hazard reported on the 95 in the Northwest Valley. This will be southbound at the Northern Beltway. And also road work on I-15 northbound at St. Rose Parkway. The right lane is blocked and the on-ramp is closed until 5 this afternoon. And Las Vegas Boulevard remains closed in both directions between Clark Avenue and before Carson Avenue. Take an alternate like Casino Center Boulevard or Main instead. Want the same internet but more privacy? DuckDuckGo's got you covered. They help millions of people like you get privacy online without any trade-offs. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified. I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
The best choice for cleaning and sanitizing? Hazmat Nation. If you work in a casino, hotel, restaurant, anywhere where locals and visitors may shop or do business, then tell your boss or employer to call Hazmat Nation today at 702-730-0352. Hazmat Nation will send their Top Gun field crew to clean and sanitize every inch from top to bottom with the top technicians and safety officers. Since 2011, Hazmat Nation has been servicing many of the world's top airlines, arenas, hotels, and hospitality venues of every kind, following strict CDC and EPA guidelines. Hazmat Nation gets it done right the first time. Call Hazmat Nation at 702-730-0352. When they come out to do a free estimate, they'll send along a gallon of CDC EPA-approved hand sanitizer just to say thanks. And they can keep delivering it to you anytime you need it at everyday low-volume discounted prices. Call Hazmat Nation today at 702-730-0352 or go online to hazmatnation.com.
Looking for that perfect new piece of furniture for your home? A New Concept Furniture is the place to start and end your search. They'll beat any price on the internet, and they're here locally, so you can feel what you're buying first. Go to A New Concept Furniture today at 4255 South Grand Canyon to see for yourself the slick, modern, shiny store that mirrors our shiny city. A New Concept. Check out their showroom or call them at 702-570-2240. That's 702-570-2240.
Hey Vegas, I'm Kelly with Westar Credit Union. We've been through a lot in our city, and we always rally and come together. These times are no exception. We will be even stronger because of it. Our city will be ready when everyone is ready to come to Vegas again. Westar Credit Union is here to serve you through the good times and the bad. We love you, Vegas, and we are here with you. Vegas strong, now and forever. Westar Credit Union.
Wins re-election, I will personally let you put your foot and kick me square up in my behind, right? And when he loses, I want to do the same to you. I want to kick you square up in your behind, friendly gesture, not really hard.
Okay, but not the groin area. The behind is okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
I want to kick him up in his glutes.
All right, JD, that's a fair bet. JD, will you agree to that on the air?
Is this real?
Yes, this is real. Malik seems not like a violent guy. He's a nice guy. He's not going to hurt
Malik, how big of a guy are you?
I'm 6 feet tall, about 250.
He's a big dude.
But like I said,
you're not going to hurt him though.
6 foot 250.
Are
you top? Are you top? Or are you bottom heavy? Or are you evenly proportioned?
no, look, I used to bench 400
All right, hold on. I have an idea.
But JD is so confident in Trump's reelection.
Yeah.
You should take the bet.
Take the bet.
You get a
JD.
chance to kick Malik in the butt.
I have no desire to kick.
How about a
Malik in his
sidekick?
butt, though.
How about a sidekick?
I don't need that satisfaction to make
All right,
myself feel
so,
better.
So let's try to reorganize this bet. If Malik wins, he can kick you in the ass. If you win, come up with some new. What would you like Malik to do?
All right, Malik. Yeah, if Donald Trump loses the 2020 election, you can lightly kick me in my ass. Lightly.
Save it, Sean.
Lightly.
Save it.
Malik, we are gonna save that audio, my friend. We have a bunch of other people on hold, but Malik, always good to hear from you. That is a verbal agreement, sir.
Yeah, good call.
And November is what, about 5 months from now? We'll probably still be in this apartment, so he'll be kicking JD's ass right over there in the living room.
Probably. Malik, I love you, man. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for calling, Malik.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Steve. Steve, you're next on the Vegas Take.
What's up, Steve?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, Steve?
Hey, I just want to say that, he could have read a verse out of the Bible, then just holding it up and then walking away right after. That would have been more of a symbol of showing that he does read the Bible.
See, and I think that would be pandering. I think that would be him.
So you don't think he pandered yesterday?
Being something. Well, I mean, if he actually did that and actually got broke out of scripture, I think that would be pandering.
So 10
because I
seconds.
don't think he does that a lot.
No. So
Again, Brian, it was a show of strength by walking across.
show of weakness.
Again, it was a show of strength.
No, it wasn't.
Don't interrupt me.
Okay. Well, you're wrong.
Oh, I'm right.
You're wrong.
I'm correct.
No,
you're
wrong.
incorrect.
No, you're wrong.
I'm right.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's a show of strength.
No,
to have a bunch of people
again,
shoot rebel bullets.
just admit that Donald Trump showed strength.
Okay, well, no.
Just
He's
admit
a weakness.
it's okay.
Nope, let's get back to our calls.
He's actually not a weakness at all.
Sir, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that
It was a show
conversation?
of strength. He walked. No, we're not going to do this. He walked across.
No, we
that.
are, because the guy called in. Let's give him the respect of letting
No,
him
you just
say-
interrupted me 3 times, Brian.
Well,
And that's
because
not
I want to
acceptable.
get to other callers.
I don't
and
find that
I want to
acceptable.
give this guy a chance to respond. You've interrupted me.
No,
three
you
times
actually
today.
no. You told me 3 times that I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Okay.
While I was trying to prove my point.
All right. Well,
But when I do that to you,
let's let the caller.
you smack the mic down.
All right.
And you turn into a little girl.
Okay, nobody wants.
Okay, let's go.
Nobody wants to hear us bicker like this. I've told you that 4 times off the air today, but yet you continue. Let's go back to the caller. Steve, go ahead.
What's up, Steve?
Yeah, I don't think it's pandering. I think it's showing that he is a man of Christ, that like he says he has in the past. Me and my wife have agreed that he doesn't portray that he is a man of Christ.
Yeah.
And has changed his life.
Steve, can I ask you a question, if I may?
He has committed adultery.
Right.
And he's been forgiven by his
Yeah. Well, and you're right, Steve.
if he's gonna claim that he is a man of Christ, then he needs to prove it
Right.
to everyone, not just his followers.
Steve, I agree. You're a Christian man, correct? Okay, so Steve, let me ask you a question. And by the way, I agree with you. He didn't read any passages in the Bible. I think that would have helped. But what about calling the diocese and meeting up with people that run that church? What about calling them ahead of time? He
didn't
Hold
go
on
into
a
the church.
second.
No,
If I
no,
can
it's not-
finish the
no, I'm
question.
not gonna let you do that.
All right. I'm asking the caller a question.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with that?
That's totally fine now. That's okay.
Right.
The lady that runs the church.
Exactly.
And he didn't. She didn't even know he was coming.
Right, exactly.
It was the photo op. It's obvious. If you have
Right.
common sense and you know this gentleman, and I've known this gentleman since the 80s.
Right.
Followed everything he's ever done. He needs to prove who he really is.
Well, I think but Steve, can I just add something to that? Steve, I think don't we know who he really is by now?
Yeah, we do.
We do. All right. Yeah, Steve, I hear you, man. Right, I hear you. Steve, I appreciate you. Steve, I appreciate your honesty, my friend. You sound like a good dude, and thank you for being for being honest.
Thanks for the call, Steve. Thanks for agreeing with Brian. Makes you a good
702.
dude.
No, he didn't call to agree with Brian. He's a religious man who sounds like he's a Republican.
No, but that's why you called him a good dude, is because he agrees with you.
Yeah, well,
You've
because-
never called anyone a good
excuse
dude that
me.
agrees
No,
with me.
Let me explain, and then we can go to our next caller
Let's
before
go.
you fight with me again, because it's bad radio. The reason why I respect Steve is because he sounds like a Republican, maybe even a Trump supporter, but as a Christian man, he brought up the behavior that Donald Trump has done, not just as president, but his entire life. He is the ultimate sinner. He brought up the cheating. I didn't bring that up. The lies on a regular basis. That is not what a good Christian man should be doing. And I appreciate Steve for being honest. And any logical human being would say that Donald Trump is a sinner. But let's go back to our phone call, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Ed. Ed, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
What's up, Ed?
How's it going?
Good. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I knew something was up when Bill Barr was out there before the president went out there.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking myself, he was out there to antagonize the crowd. Maybe they could do something so they have an excuse to do something to the crowd. That was me. I was going too far.
Yeah, me too.
Now, after all is done, it was just assessing the situation to see if they could do what he did about the photo op.
Right.
You know.
So you're saying, so Ed, I want to get your opinion right. Ed, you're basically saying that you think he was just testing. He was just kind of testing people, testing the police, and he, and in a way antagonizing the protesters. Is that what you're saying, Ed?
Well, that was my thought originally, but I think he was just assessing the situation to see if it was possible for Donald Trump to go out there, or safe for him to go out there and do what he did. That's my. I mean, now that I see it, but my original thought was that, that he was trying to antagonize the crowd.
Well, maybe it could be a little bit of both, but here's what I think, Ed. I think that Donald Trump was being, you wanted to show how powerful he was and what a strong man he was. In return, there was a peaceful protest going on with thousands of people, and rubber bullets were being shot at them so that Donald Trump could pave his way in his high heels in front of this church and basically parade a Bible and a photo op for 10 seconds. I think that is about him being a narcissist and an egomaniac and making everything about him. Let's get back to the phone calls, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Brian. Brian, you're next on the Vegas Take.
How you doing, guys? I just want to say we need more people like Malik in the world, and I want to get to the point of more of the tear gas and rubber bullets. I think what happened to Mr. Floyd was absolutely horrendous, and those officers need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent. But I think what everybody's doing, and the point is those rubber bullets and tear gas should have been fired sooner. It starts off as a peaceful protest, and then it turns into rioting. I was mad he didn't do it sooner. I think he was showing force. I think he shot and tear gas those people away to prove that you don't own this park, you don't own this church. I think they made the church symbolic the other night. That's all I have to say. Thank you, gentlemen. Second time caller. I love your show. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My thoughts on that is, as the President of the United States or even a member of law enforcement, you should never abuse your power and shoot rubber bullets at people to make a point. You shoot rubber bullets at people and you throw tear gas at people if they are committing crimes. Now, if they're committing crimes, I have absolutely no problem with that, and I agree with you 100%. But what took place yesterday, and that's what we're talking about, based on the protest during the day, that was not happening. 702-257-5396. Let's go to John. John, you're next on the Vegas Take.
Hey, man. Hey, JD, you got to have somebody keep track of all the bets you made. I got, in my mind, I got $100 if I was joining the outcome of the election.
Say that again, John. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I want somebody to keep track of all the bets JD's making. I think, in my mind,
I think
made a bet with JD.
Yeah, I think I'm I think I'm 0 for 2, and I've got 2 out there, so I could be 0 for 4 soon. Not doing very well on the bet train. We'll put it that way.
No. I mean, on the outcome of the election. In my mind, I've got a $100 bet with you that Trump's going to lose. You think he's going to win?
Yeah, I'll take that bet. That's fine. I mean, I don't know if I can even do that legally on air, but I'll take that bet. That's fine. We're good.
All right, well, here's what we're going to do. You can call. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I called was, look, we saw a B-rate reality show TV star try to make a scene yesterday. There's no doubt that he was embarrassed that he was put in the bunker, and he was going to try to project strength. But I think what we saw yesterday, I think taxpayers should be outraged. I think we saw the President of the United States use the Secret Service and the military to create what will be his primary campaign ad going forward. He's going to use the footage of that march and that fake Bible in his hand. Come on, man. Holding a Bible, that's too rich. It's just too rich. And if you're outraged like me, I would just encourage everybody, make sure you vote, and make sure you register too. Make sure you convince 2 other people that they need to vote this November, and we need to get rid of this orange fraud on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's absolutely disgraceful what he did.
And I can appreciate your opinion. I obviously don't agree with it, but I'm still going to let you express it. I don't know why you wouldn't want the president to show strength. I don't know why you wouldn't want the president of the country that you live in to show strength. I don't know why you would make it personal and about him under those circumstances. And again, I think what he was doing was he was walking across there. He was showing strength because he did have 60 Secret Service officers that were injured the night before. That's a really big deal. It's something we didn't mention, but that's a big deal. He went there. He does have a large evangelical base, and that base does appreciate it. When a church like St. John's is vandalized and set on fire, they do appreciate it to know that their president still supports them, and that's why I think he did it. It's not. Hey, I was in the bunker and I'm trying to look powerful. It's, hey, my base needs to know that this is not acceptable. And that doesn't make him a pussy. That doesn't make him a wussy. That doesn't make him a narcissist. It makes him a leader, and it makes him a president.
It doesn't make him the P word. He just grabs them. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Paul. Paul, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Paul?
Hey, how you doing? Hey, it's a no-brainer Trump's going to win. These guys are delusional thinking he ain't. But anyway, just think to yourself, next time something happens again, would you rather have Hillary in there? Thank God it's Trump.
Okay, let me respond to that. Paul. First of all, I completely disagree with you when you say that Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide. I think that's not accurate, number one. I don't know where you're getting your hold on. No. You can disagree with me, but I'm going to answer your two questions that I think are your two statements that I think are ridiculous. I do not think Trump is going to win in a landslide. As far as Hillary Clinton goes, I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't, because I don't think she was a very good candidate. But I will say this. Hillary Clinton would do a better job in office right now dealing with this crisis that we have dealt with when it comes to COVID and when it comes to racial divide. I'll tell you one thing Hillary Clinton wouldn't do, and this is what we've been talking about in regards to what took place yesterday. Hillary Clinton would not want to get rid of a peaceful protest. That's what happened yesterday afternoon, a peaceful protest. And she would not want rubber bullets to be sprayed in the air with these people so that she could be in front of a church and hold up a Bible for 10 seconds. So you are one.
Let me remind you that she walked away from Benghazi.
Excuse me. Let me remind you that there were 9 investigations led by Republicans into Benghazi that found no criminal wrongdoing. So you are a buffoon, sir, for bringing up Benghazi. Have a nice day. 702.
Great call.
Yeah.
Sorry I didn't agree with Brian, which makes you buffoon, but great call.
Okay, so what did Hillary Clinton do wrong when it came to Benghazi? You disagree with my assessment?
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. So what did I say in that call that was buffoonery?
No, I said I'm sorry that you didn't disagree or that you didn't agree with Brian, which makes you a buffoon, not you, the caller.
No, what makes him a buffoon is
that's why you called him a buffoon.
He brought up
because he doesn't agree with you.
No,
that's all I was.
No,
I didn't call you.
No, once again you're wrong. I'll tell you why. I'll dissect No, that's okay. You made the statement. He brought up Benghazi. 9 investigations led by Republicans found no wrongdoing by Hillary Clinton. For somebody to bring up Benghazi is buffoonery. That is why I called him a buffoon. It is a right-wing talking point that even Sean Hannity wouldn't bring up. 9 investigations. It's wrong.
You're saying he's a buffoon based on the merits of
exactly.
I'm very, very thankful that Donald Trump is the president, as opposed
nothing
to
to do with what we just talked about.
Under these circumstances,
nothing to do with what we just talked about.
That's exactly what he said.
I called the caller
That's why he called in. Was to say that he said,
Okay.
"I'm thankful, or I'm very happy that we don't have Hillary Clinton under these circumstances," and I agree with him.
And I gave him my
you're surprised by
answer. And then he brought up Benghazi, which is a ridiculous thing. He didn't bring up any logical reasons to back up his opinions. That is why I called him a buffoon. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Elizabeth?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I just want to point out that we are dismissing the issue here, and that is the lack of unity across our country.
Mm-hmm.
Trump has dismissed any dialogue around unifying our people. We have this pandemic, which brought him to the forefront of the media to talk about the crisis of health. What about our social crisis? As Americans, our democracy is being challenged. It is being suffocated. Where is the dialogue bringing the people together? Standing in front of a church is advocating to the conservative right. And you know what? If that's part of his political dilemma, so be it. But he is supposedly a leader. Where is the leadership? Uniting the people, having people. I have no problem with the president executing order, but I do have a problem when there is no leadership around the protection of our country, our democracy, our social justice.
JD, go ahead and respond. Elizabeth, I want you to stay on the line. JD, go ahead and respond to that.
What do you mean our social justice system leadership? What are you expecting the president to do? For example, when
let her answer your question.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
In leadership, so you asked me as a leader, what am I expecting him to do? A leader is someone who does the right thing even when it's difficult. So him indicating that he is exercising military support to bring order to the country is almost like him telling a half-truth. Why is he doing that? Now, it would be just if he was doing it for the purpose of unifying people. There is no dialogue around that. Our leader is not being a leader. He is not bringing the people together. Our democracy was founded on opposing opinions, but yet we managed to come together. Where is the leadership beyond that? I'm finding myself actually listening to political candidates that I have no support, have no interest in supporting, but I'm actually listening to their dialogue about needing to have this conversation. So that's one, that's what I mean about the leadership. Two, the social justice is that how can we have social justice if we don't have that leadership teaching us or reminding us that.
JD, your response to that? Let's let JD respond to that, Elizabeth, because we got some time constraints here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, are you suggesting national programs for social justice? I mean, I guess it's such a broad thing that you're bringing up right now. For example, you mentioned how he wants the civilians and the various levels of military to stop these looting and rioting. Well, how? I mean, I understand that the Black Lives Matter protests and the protests in general, and actually a lot of people that are there, they're not, as Anderson Cooper said, he indicated they were all African American. They're not. There's a lot of Caucasians at these protests, and I'm not talking about the peaceful protests. Are they messing up the middle of the street? Are they blocking traffic? Yes. But at night, the looting and the rioting, how do you stop that if the police departments refuse to step in? How do you stop that without?
That is where we have to bring in law enforcement. But
right.
The social component.
But then let me ask you this. I think a lot of this is happening because, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I think a lot of this is happening because of just the massive wealth disparity. There is a giant wealth gap, and the wealth gap has an identity behind it. I think that a lot of people that are of the African, that are African American are living in poverty. There's also a lot of Caucasians that are living in poverty, and they want to take advantage of any situation they can to get out of that situation, and that's why looting and rioting takes place because of situations like that. But how do you stop that? How do you stop the wealth gap in a capitalist America? You really can't. And so I mean, you want to stop a wealth gap? Okay, well, let's go socialist, let's go communist. But that would change our entire country. So I think that a lot of the social justice, a lot of that conversation has to do with the fact that there are just a lot of very poor people in this country, and there are some very rich people in the country, and that is a part of every single capitalist nation, and since capitalism became a thing. And so unless you take that away, I'm not sure that you can even that gap.
All right, we're pretty much out of time here, but certainly a lot of topics that we will be continuing to discuss tomorrow. But as far as the wealth gap goes, I guess not every single person has the fortunate ability to receive a $400 million company from their father. That's what Donald Trump received at a fairly young age in his life. So if we want to talk about privilege and we want to talk about what it's like to suffer financially and live paycheck to paycheck, the President of the United States has never had to do that in his life. He doesn't know what these people experience. And I'm not even talking about race. I'm just simply talking about what it is like to suffer.
Has any president ever had to deal with that
before? I'm just talking about what it is. Yes. Barack Obama.
No, he didn't.
U.S. grant.
No. Barack Obama.
You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
His grandmother owned a bank, Brian.
Barack Obama was brought up. Okay, well, now we're going to get into the Barack Obama, and you're going to say that Barack Obama was given a $400 million company.
No, I'm just saying he's never had to live paycheck to paycheck.
You want to make a bet on that? You think Barack Obama was rich when he was in his early 20s? It's just simply not true.
You don't have to be rich to live paycheck to paycheck, Brian. You just have to have some money in the bank.
Okay, we're obviously going to disagree on that. You want to say that Barack Obama was given everything in a silver platter like Donald Trump? I just
Never
think
once said that at all.
Okay.
And now you're spinning it again.
All right,
I just
we
said
gotta
give him
go.
a paycheck to
We gotta go.
paycheck.
All right, we gotta go. 21-hour break, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Hannity will be coming up next. Thanks for listening. We'll be back at you live tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Hope everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you for listening